Chapter 539. Brother Phoenix. On the other side, Qing Luan, who was fighting with Emperor Wu Shi, suddenly screamed crazily when she saw Li Yu kill the immortal emperor. Brother Phoenix. Qing Luan screamed crazily and ignored Emperor Wu Shi. She flapped her wings and flew towards Li Yu. Clang! The bell of no beginning slammed into Qing Luan's back, causing her feathers to fly and blood to splatter. However, Qing Luan didn't seem to care at all. She didn't care about her own injuries and rushed towards Li Yu crazily. Seeing this situation, Li Yu's body trembled. Thinking of the feminine appearance of the green phoenix venerable, some indescribable guesses appeared in his mind. What the hell? It can't be, right? Li Yu felt numb all over. He suddenly thought of the ambiguous relationship between the immortal emperor and the first divine general and felt like he had discovered a certain truth. I was worried that you would be torn apart by no beginning. Now you're still intact. Very good. Li Yu waved his sleeves and kept the immortal emperor's immortal phoenix body. He then waved his hand at Qing Luan with a smile. Qing Luan was immortal after all. Although she was far inferior to Emperor Wu Shi and the immortal emperor, she was still very valuable. Whether it was skinning and breaking her bones to use as materials, refining Qing Luan's cultivation to make her his subordinates, or even using her as a source of energy to maintain the operation of the system, she was very useful. Li Yu was worried that Qing Luan would be torn apart by Emperor Wu Shi. A pile of broken body would be much less useful. After all, Qing Luan was Emperor Wu Shi's opponent. If Li Yu stole her kill, it would look bad. Now that Qing Luan had delivered herself to him, Li Yu would not be polite. Seal of the Sovereign. The palm print that killed the undying Sky Emperor once again displayed its supreme divine might. There was no sound, no earth-shattering movement, but it contained a monstrous power that could destroy the greater worlds and the universe. Inspired by the remnant of the heaven-flipping seal that came from the immortal ancient era, Li Yu gathered everything he had learned and evolved a pure destructive divine ability. Unlike the fist of the Juggernaut, which revealed one's great Tao, the Juggernaut's seal was purely destructive. Pure destructive power, extreme destructive power, how terrifying was its power! The palm print shot out, almost recreating the peerless power of the sky-flipping seal, to turn the world upside down. Pooh! The palm lightly slammed down. The unstoppable peerless divine might crushed everything in its path, and slammed onto the head of the blue Luan. Brother! Huang! Qing Luan let out a long and miserable cry and fell to the ground. It actually makes me feel like I'm trying to break up an affectionate couple? Li Yu couldn't help but laugh. With a wave of his sleeve, he put away the body of the green phoenix and the feather-like green longsword. That feather-like longsword was also an immortal artifact. Of course, Li Yu wouldn't let go of such a harvest. Ah, Lord Qing Luan is also dead. Run. The immortal emperor and the immortal emperor Qing Luan had fallen one after another. The subordinates they had gathered were immediately scared out of their wits and fled in all directions. Kill, eliminate all evil. Eliminate the evil, eliminate the evil. The 6 great monarchs under Li Yu's command and the subordinates of no beginning immediately chased after Qin Nan while yelling. There weren't many great emperors under the immortal emperor and the immortal emperor Qing Luan. There were less than 10 of them. Over the years, Great Emperor No Beginning had fought with the immortal emperor. Although he hadn't won a great victory, many of the great emperors under the immortal emperor had been knocked into ashes by the bell of no beginning. There weren't many great emperors left. Clang, in the sky-splitting sword had broken the immortal heaven blade several times. Even if it was reborn with the power of the phoenix's nirvana, it had suffered heavy losses. At this moment, the immortal emperor was already dead. The imprint of the immortal heaven blade had also begun to dissipate. The immortal heaven blade was no match for the sky-splitting sword. Clang! The sky-splitting sword directly suppressed the immortal heaven blade and swept it up, flying to Li Yu's side. Well done. Li Yu reached out and grabbed the immortal heaven blade. With a brush of yin and yang qi, the last imprint of the immortal emperor was instantly destroyed. The immortal heaven blade fell into Li Yu's hands again. Although it's a weaker immortal artifact, it's still an immortal artifact. Li Yu put away the immortal heaven blade without hesitation. He had obtained 2 immortal-level divine birds and 2 immortal artifacts from this battle. It was a huge gain. Thank you for your help, Heavenly Master. At this moment, Great Emperor No Beginning came forward and bowed to Li Yu, thanking him. You're welcome. Li Yu smiled and bowed to Emperor Wu Shi. Heavenly Master, you. Great Emperor No Beginning's gaze paused on Li Yu. He arched an eyebrow in surprise. He sensed the presence of the Khanate Tao embryo on Li Yu, and even the presence of the primordial scripture. Legend had it that the Grand Celestial Venerate was a senior expert of the ancient Chaos era. Why did it seem like he'd practiced the primordial scripture before? You mean the primordial scripture? Li Yu immediately understood the reason when he saw Great Emperor No Beginning's expression. I've studied your primordial scripture before. Li Yu nodded with a smile. Who is the peak at the end of the path to immortality? The primordial Tao becomes nothing at first sight. The primordial scripture's concept of all things return to nothing, the beginning of heaven and earth, has inspired me greatly. Li Yu had started off with the primordial scripture. Although he later walked his own path and formed the 2 origins of matter and order, he still had some of the primordial scripture's aura. Others might not be able to see it, but as the creator of the primordial scripture, he could naturally feel the aura of the primordial scripture. You flatter me, Heavenly Master. Great Emperor No Beginning was enlightened. He had left the primordial scripture on Mount Purple. Others might not be able to take it or see the scripture, but it definitely wouldn't be difficult for the Grand Celestial Venerate. Since the ancient Chaos era, the heavenly Tao has been incomplete, and it's impossible to become an immortal. It's amazing that you can become immortals in this world under such circumstances. Li Yu admired Di Zun, No Beginning, Vicious, and even the immortal Emperor, as well as the underworld Emperor Duanda and the Saint Body Yi Fan. It was simply too difficult to become an immortal under such conditions. Those who could reach this step were all people with great perseverance, wisdom, and courage. It was truly admirable. I've read many scriptures created by the great emperors. Your primordial scripture could be considered a peerless technique if it weren't for the high requirements. Unfortunately, it's rare for one to appear in hundreds of thousands of years. Li Yu smiled and looked at No Beginning. He was full of praise for the primordial scripture. Among the scriptures created by the great emperors, ruthless heaven-devouring demonic art and indestructible heaven art were the strongest. Ruthless cultivation methods started from a mortal body and defied the heavens to change his fate. It could be said to be the best in this world. If the primordial scripture's requirements weren't too high, only those with innate saint bodies could cultivate it. Its attainment wouldn't be inferior to ruthless two divine arts. Of course, there was nothing he could do about it. After all, the cultivation methods created by the great emperors were originally created for themselves. No Beginning's talent was too high. There was nothing he could do about it. You flatter me, Heavenly Master. No Beginning laughed loudly and stood on the primordial bell with his hands behind his back. His heroic spirit was admirable. Boom. At this time, the entire space between the two worlds shook. Golden light swept across the sky, enveloping and sealing the entire world. The sovereign, the biggest mastermind in this world, had finally made his move. Chapter 540. A mighty golden light shrouded the world. An inexplicable aura permeated the air, devouring everything and annihilating all life. It was as if it wanted to refine everything. Ah, what's going on? The subordinates of the immortal emperor, who were fleeing in all directions, suddenly realized with horror that their strength and life source seemed to be constantly devoured by something. Damn it! Liyu's subordinates and no-beginning subordinates also felt the inexplicable aura that was constantly extracting their strength. Sovereign, you finally can't hold it in anymore? Liyu looked up at the sky and snorted coldly. My subordinates are not for you to touch. He reached out and waved his hand. The black and white yin and yang qi swept out and turned into a Tai Chi diagram, protecting the great sage physique and no-beginning subordinates under the Tai Chi diagram. Sovereign, you're not dead. The no-beginning heavenly emperor glanced at the sky. His eyes were as calm as water, and his face did not change at all. It was as if he was not surprised by the sovereign's appearance. Sovereign, you've waited for so long. You're finally willing to come out? Liu stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the sky with a smile. There was a hint of mockery in his smile. Grand Heavenly Lord, I didn't expect even you to come. What a pleasant surprise. A face that covered the entire sky appeared in the golden light. His mighty voice shook the world. It was majestic and unparalleled. I look down on all eternity and refine the world. I use a broken world to evolve a world and refine it into a cauldron. Once the supreme immortal cauldron appears, I will definitely improve. As the sovereign's voice echoed, the entire world shook and trembled. Countless streams of light rose up. Everything in the world, including all living beings, was refined into the immortal cauldron. To make the supreme immortal cauldron, 4 mortal immortals are still not enough. I originally wanted to continue waiting. However, Grand Heavenly Lord, you've given me a huge surprise. You're very strong. As long as I refine you into the immortal cauldron, it'll be enough. The sovereign's voice carried a hint of complacency, which made Liu very unhappy. Bell of no beginning, suppress heaven and earth. Boundless Great Emperor shouted and the bell started to ring. The bell of no beginning shone brightly and turned into a gigantic golden bell that protected the entire area. It's just a last-ditch struggle. It's meaningless. Seeing that Emperor Wu Shi had used the bell of no beginning to suppress this world, Venerable D did not take it seriously. He smiled and shook his head. This world is the cauldron, and the human world is the furnace. The entire mortal world is the fuel for my immortal cauldron. Once the cauldron is ignited, the universe will be extinguished. Everything will be refined in this cauldron. The ancestor's voice was incomparably cold. He even looked at Liu with ridicule in his eyes. It's too early for you to be happy. Liu smiled and shook his head. Even if the human world is firewood, you won't be able to light the fire. Liu gently flicked his finger, and the talismans that he had already placed in the mortal realm lit up one by one. The mighty light was like a pillar that supported the heavens, forming a light screen that covered the entire universe. A huge formation appeared and protected the entire human realm in its center. This method of arranging stars as a formation came from the great realm sealing formation in another world. Liu modified the realm sealing array, setting it up into a starry sky array that enveloped the entire world, isolating all means. Venerable D's expression changed. The aloof attitude of, everything in the world is in my hands, on the face in the sky disappeared, and was replaced by shock. Grand Celestial Venerable, how dare you destroy my formation? Venerable D's eyes flashed coldly and his face twisted. Even so, I've already controlled this world after hundreds of millions of years of arrangement. You're all in my cauldron. You'll all die. Venerable D roared. The golden light that filled the sky turned into raging flames. The entire void of 2 worlds seemed to have fallen into a scorching furnace. Even with the suppression of the bell of no beginning, the earth and plants were constantly drying up. How dare you act so violently in front of me? Liu snorted. With a flick of his sleeve, a 9-story pagoda appeared, suppressing the heavens and the earth. Together with the bell of no beginning, the pagoda enveloped the world and blocked the sovereign's refining power. Emperor of no beginning, how about we meet Venerable D? Liu pulled out the sky splitter and turned to look at Emperor of no beginning. I'd like to see Venerable D's skills. Emperor of no beginning's eyes were as calm as water, but Liu could see the hidden turbulence beneath the calm surface. Then, let's fight. Liu raised the sky splitter and swung it. Sky splitter. An extremely sharp sword light shot up into the sky. It split the world, severed time and space, annihilated order, and destroyed Tao laws. Everything was destroyed. Everything turned into chaos. The sky splitter had cut open the net that covered the world in the past. Now that Lord of No Beginning had turned into a sword spirit, the power of the sky splitter was even stronger. More importantly, Liu's current strength was unstoppable when he activated the sky splitter with all his might. Boom! The world cracked and the sky collapsed. It was as if the heavens and the earth had been split apart. This sword light that penetrated the heavens and the earth had slashed apart the heavens and the earth, shattering all obstacles. This sword slashed out a huge crack that tore the entire sky apart. The crack in the sky appeared again. The sky splitter lived up to its name. The world that Venerable D had refined into an immortal cauldron was cut open by Liu's sword. It broke open the world of the immortal cauldron and led to the endless void. Damn it! Venerable D's furious and horrified roar came from the crack. Venerable D, die! Emperor of No Beginning roared angrily. His figure whizzed through the crack in the sky and rushed into the endless void. Boom! The void shook violently. The huge impact caused the world of the immortal cauldron to tremble violently. Emperor of No Beginning, did you not have enough fun? Seeing Emperor of No Beginning rushing forward, Liu suddenly remembered that he had killed the immortal Emperor and the immortal Green Phoenix. No Beginning had not even gotten a single one. He must have been itching for a fight. Speaking of which, given my status, isn't it too much to join hands with No Beginning to attack Venerable D? Liu smiled and shook his head. He rushed into the endless void through the crack. Boom! In the chaotic void, Emperor of No Beginning waved his hand and sent out a mighty immortal light. It broke the chaos and annihilated the void, sweeping across the endless void. Opposite No Beginning, there was a figure wearing an emperor's robe and a flat imperial crown. He looked majestic, as if he was the supreme ruler of heaven and earth. He was fighting with No Beginning. Is that the Venerable D? The founder of the ancient heavenly court? Does he really think he is the celestial emperor? Liu shook his head. He didn't like this guy who was even more pretentious than he was. Let them fight for now. I'll deal with any future problems first. He pressed down with his hand. Intertwining black and white light swept out, enveloping the world of the immortal cauldron in the mighty qi of yin and yang. The qi of yin and yang washed over the world like a tidal wave. All of the Venerable D's seals were destroyed by it. The world of the immortal cauldron was no longer under the Venerable D's control. The formation that refined all things also stopped working. The desolate tower and bell of No Beginning are free now. Liu waved his hand and took out the desolate tower and bell of No Beginning from the immortal cauldron world. Now, should we get a stool and watch the show? Liu tossed the bell of No Beginning to Emperor of No Beginning. He crossed his arms and watched the two fight with great interest. Recommended a friend's new book, Prince of Xianmen. Chapter 541. I think it's better if I don't interfere. It was strange that he had robbed the limitless emperor twice, so it would be a bit embarrassing to rob him again. Moreover, with his status as the Grand Empyrean, it would be beneath his status to join forces with others to attack. Of course, the most important thing was that Liu wanted to see just how powerful Wu Shi the Great Emperor was. He wanted to know just how powerful he was. Thus, Liu began to watch the show with a clear conscience. Previous chapter, next chapter, boom. At this time, a loud sound rang out from the immortal cauldron world. Liu turned his head and saw a figure in white robes whistling through the air, instantly rushing out from the crack. Eh? Ruthless is here too? Li Yu was also surprised to see the Empress rush out from the crack. The ruthless person who had always been concerned about Yi Fan and didn't care about anything else was actually interested in this matter? Emperor! The fluttering white-robed Empress instantly appeared in the void of primal chaos. The Empress raised her eyes to look at the two sides of the battle. Her beautiful eyebrows slightly furrowed, and then, boom! Without saying a word, the Empress instantly rushed into the battlefield. Her jade-white palm pierced through the air, and a mighty immortal light soared into the sky, fiercely slapping towards the sovereign emperor. Sigh. Are you trying to steal the kill? Li Yu opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. Ruthless, who cherished his words like gold and didn't say a single word for a long time, was simply impossible to communicate with. Although forming a team to kill a boss was a conventional way of doing things. However, the sovereign emperor could only be considered an elite monster at most. There was no need to form a team to kill it, right? Ruthless emperor? No Beginning was also somewhat surprised by the arrival of the Ruthless. However, when he met a ruthless person who didn't care about anyone, didn't answer, and directly started fighting, he was also very helpless. Since he had joined the battle, he could only continue fighting. Previous chapter next chapter boom. Previous chapter next chapter boom. Immortal light exploded in the sky, and the boundless power shattered the primal chaos. The three of them fought until the primal chaos was destroyed, until the primal chaos collapsed. In this primal chaos, the three of them actually created a void. The process of the battle was very exciting, but there was no suspense. Under the combined forces of Ruthless and No Beginning, even the Sovereign Emperor, who claimed to be above the Celestial Emperor and the Sky Sovereign, could only be defeated. Pooh! Vicious slammed his palm onto the Venerable Sovereign's head, shattering his soul. Boom! No Beginning punched the Venerable Sovereign in the chest, destroying his internal organs. The world's biggest mastermind was wiped out by a team just like that. He's an autarch after all. It's a little inappropriate for his corpse to be exposed in the primal chaos void. I will let him rest in peace. Li Yu stepped forward and collected the ancestor's corpse with a wave of his hand. The body of a worldly immortal was extremely valuable. As for whether or not he was truly buried, it was hard to say. The Venerable Sovereign has fallen. From now on, the world is safe. After killing the Sovereign, Vicious turned around and left without saying a word. Li Yu and No Beginning looked at each other, smiled bitterly, and left the chaos void. After returning to the immortal cauldron world, Li Yu discovered that Vicious hadn't left. Instead, he was standing in the immortal cauldron world, waiting for Li Yu and Qin Wentian. This is an immortal treasure painting. An ancient scroll appeared in Vicious' hand. This records the method to break through the void and enter the immortal domain. I don't need this. Li Yu smiled and waved his hand, then looked at No Beginning and Vicious. The immortal domain is damaged, making it difficult to become an immortal. I plan to repair the immortal domain and give future generations a smooth path to immortal ascension. Repair the immortal domain. Even with No Beginning's calmness and Vicious indifference, they were shocked by Li Yu's words. The Grand Empyrean had such a remarkable ability? He could repair the immortal domain? Wasn't this too inconceivable? Predecessors plant trees for future generations to enjoy the shade. This is all thanks to Celestial Emperor Huang's efforts. Celestial Emperor Huang's lifelong wish was to repair the immortal domain. Now that he has done so, I naturally have to fulfill his wish. Thinking of Celestial Emperor Huang's efforts, Li Yu felt a wave of emotion. Is this why the Empyrean appeared in this world? No Beginning and Vicious had both heard of the Grand Empyrean and knew that he was of the same generation as Celestial Emperor Huang. Now that they heard Li Yu's words, the two of them began to make guesses as to why Li Yu had appeared in this world. If you need our help, No Beginning will not refuse. No Beginning felt some admiration for the heavenly Empyrean's magnificent feat. In order to repair the immortal domain, Celestial Emperor Huang and the Grand Empyrean had plotted for hundreds of millions of years and put in countless efforts, as expected of a senior expert of virtue and prestige. Although Vicious didn't say anything, he nodded at Liu, indicating that he was willing to help. All right, this was a misunderstanding. In No Beginning and Vicious eyes, Liu was a senior expert of the ancient Chaos era. In fact, Liu hadn't even been to the ancient Chaos era yet. To repair the immortal domain, there's one more crucial thing. Liu reached out and grabbed the aura of 9 dragons pulling a coffin from Sky Burial Island in the resource vault. He touched it with his spirit and found the coffin through this aura. Sky Burial Island is closely connected to the coffin. Through the aura of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin left on Sky Burial Island, you can find it. Using the aura to guide the coffin, summon it. He poured his magic power into the aura in his hand. The attraction from the origin summoned the coffin from the void of the universe. Rumble. 9 pitch-black dragons pulled a huge bronze coffin through the void and flew from the human world. They flew into the world of the immortal cauldron through the void created by Liu and stopped in front of Liu. Celestial Emperor Huang created a small immortal world to repair the immortal domain. Liu opened the bronze coffin with a wave of his hand. He sighed with emotion when he saw the small bronze coffin inside. Celestial Emperor Huang had ruled over the ages, isolated the source of darkness, and fought alone in the dark realm for countless years. Now it was unknown if he was still alive. You want to repair the immortal domain and make it perfect. The small immortal world in the bronze coffin has been evolving for countless years. It's enough to repair the immortal domain. Liu reached out and took out the bronze coffin containing the small immortal world. I'll fulfill this wish for you. This is the result of Celestial Emperor Huang's efforts over hundreds of millions of years. Liu picked up the bronze coffin and sighed deeply. After hundreds of millions of years, Celestial Emperor Huang's efforts weren't in vain. I opened it and took a look. There's a world inside, a world just like the immortal domain. Vicious looked at the bronze coffin in Liu's hand and said faintly. Celestial Emperor Huang created the small immortal world to repair the immortal domain. Liu reached out and drew out the laws of the small immortal world from the bronze coffin. A gorgeous immortal light lingered on his fingertip. With this immortal light, Liu stretched out his hand towards the void. Rumble! Light exploded in the sky as heaven and earth rumbled and the void trembled. The light formed by the immortal domain's laws seemed to have triggered a boundless world. That world resonated with the light formed by the immortal domain's laws. Rumble! The space shook violently as an incomparably huge gate appeared in the sky. Boundless immortal light erupted as the gate slowly opened, revealing a vast and boundless world. The immortal domain opened just like that? Didn't you say 3 mortal immortals had to work together to open it? Wu Shi and Vicious were shocked to see Liu open the immortal domain so easily. The Grand Empyrean was indeed omnipotent. Chapter 542. The fact that Liu had opened the immortal realm with a wave of his hand shocked everyone. The immortal realm, which required 3 worldly immortals to work together, had been opened by the Grand Empyrean with a wave of his hand. Even Wu Shi and Vicious were very impressed by Liu's strength. After 10 years of analyzing the laws of heaven and earth, Liu's strength had improved again. However, opening the immortal realm so easily had a lot to do with Liu's Tao of laws. With the laws of the small immortal realm in the bronze coffin as a guide, Liu could connect with the laws of the immortal realm. It was indeed much easier than using brute force to open the immortal realm. The immortal realm is open. Let's go and see what the immortal realm is like. Liu carried the bronze coffin and nodded to everyone around him. He stepped into the immortal gate and entered the immortal realm. I didn't think that we would have the chance to become an immortal. The ancient Qilin emperor and the others lamented as they followed Li Yu through the immortal gate and into the mysterious immortal realm. Let's go in too. Wu Shi and Vicious were already worldly immortals, so it didn't matter whether they entered the immortal realm or not. However, they couldn't miss the grand occasion of the Grand Empyrean repairing the immortal realm. Everyone followed closely behind and stepped through the celestial gate, stepping into the celestial realm. Is this the immortal realm? The ancient Qilin emperor took a deep breath. His body glowed with immortal light and emitted a gorgeous immortal light that resembled feathers. At the same time, the other great emperors and Wu Shi's subordinates also shone with boundless immortal light as if they were ascending. After countless years of searching, today, we have finally become immortals. Everyone was filled with emotions. Some people even had tears in their eyes. The immortal realm is indeed extraordinary. No Beginning and Vicious did not show any signs of immortal light, nor did they show any signs of immortal light. They had already become worldly immortals, so they naturally didn't need to use the immortal realm's laws to advance. The two of them followed beside Li Yu and looked at the vast and mysterious world in front of them. They were also filled with emotions. In front of them was a vast and boundless world. The sky was filled with auspicious clouds and dazzling immortal light. Pure and vast heaven and earth Yuan Qi permeated the entire world. Compared to the mortal world, the heaven and earth Yuan Qi in the immortal realm was countless times denser. The earth was vast and boundless. Towering mountains towered into the clouds, as if they were as tall as the heavens. Celestial clouds lingered around them, and multicolored light shone for 10,000 zhang. On the vast earth, the earth veins were like dragons. The winding mountain ranges were like giant dragons swimming. Above the mountain range, the faint silhouettes of true dragons could be seen. The river surged and water vapor filled the sky. Every river seemed to be as vast as the ocean. The ground was verdant and ancient trees towered into the sky. It was like an ancient tree that had grown for millions of years, like a pillar that supported the heavens. The intertwining vines were incomparably thick, resembling spiraling dragons. Bang! The gigantic immortal birds swept across the sky, stirring up the wind and clouds. Roar! The huge savage beast raised its head to the sky and roared, its voice echoing in all directions. The longevity substance is abundant, no wonder it's called the immortal domain. It's not hard to live forever in this world. Without Beginning looked around and sensed the longevity substance that permeated this world. He smiled and nodded. The better the conditions, the lower the achievements. Vicious didn't seem to have much interest in the immortal domain. After taking a look, he no longer paid attention to it. The immortal domain is damaged. It looks beautiful now, but in reality, it's already difficult to continue. Li Yu's eyes swept over. His divine soul came into contact with the world's laws of heaven and earth, and he immediately understood the flaws of the immortal domain. Before the immortal ancient era, this world had always been fighting endlessly. In the end, the world was shattered and countless epochs were destroyed. By the chaotic ancient era, the immortal domain had already been shattered. When his divine soul came into contact with the world's laws of heaven and earth, Li Yu already understood the truth of the immortal domain being damaged. The celestial realm had been destroyed. After experiencing countless world-destroying battles, the immortal domain was like a cup full of cracks. It looked intact, but in fact it had long leaked. It was precisely because the immortal domain was leaking that the world's origin energy was constantly flowing away, causing the world to be unable to accommodate more immortals. This was the fundamental reason why the world did not allow one to become an immortal. Repairing the immortal domain is actually an act of mending the heavens. Li Yu looked at the bronze coffin beside him, and felt a wave of emotion in his heart. Heaven Emperor Huang is indeed worthy of being a peerless figure who shakes the ancient times. The act of mending the heavens is truly beyond imagination. He reached out to open the bronze coffin, and endless immortal light rushed out like a fountain. The immortal light was like rain, colorful and varied. "Everyone, I'm going to begin." Liu greeted everyone, and then he lifted the bronze coffin that was spewing immortal light, and rushed into the sky with a howl. "The heavenly venerable is going to repair the immortal domain." Everyone hurriedly looked at the sky without blinking. They naturally could not miss such a shocking feat. If they could comprehend a thing or two from it, they would benefit for the rest of their lives. Mending the heavens is not easy after all. No Beginning also looked up at the sky. At his level, the feeling was different. Even with the small immortal world created by Heaven Emperor Huang, mending the heavens was not so easy. This was not as simple as plugging the cracks. If the immortal domain was damaged, it was not just the space that was damaged. To a greater extent, it was the laws of the immortal domain that were damaged. The immortal domain is damaged, and the great Tao is incomplete. Today, I will use the treasure left behind by Heaven Emperor Huang to mend the heavens. Liu stood in the sky, reached out, and grabbed a ball of dazzling light from the bronze coffin. Endless immortal light erupted violently, as if a brilliant sun had risen in the sky. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion sounded in the sky, and heaven and earth shook. The entire immortal domain trembled. The immortal domain is damaged? Mending the heavens? Someone wants to mend the heavens? Countless living beings in the immortal domain looked at the sky in shock. When they saw the dazzling figure, they were so excited that their bodies trembled. Grand Empyrean? Grand Empyrean wants to mend the heavens? Rongqingzi, Old Dan, Tathagata, the Lotus Emperor, the Flame Emperor, and the Yellow Emperor. These great emperors who had entered the immortal domain from the flying immortal planet were shocked and excited when they saw the familiar figure in the sky. Great Empyrean virtue! Rongqingzi and the others shouted and bowed to the imposing figure in the sky. Great Empyrean virtue! Seeing Rongqingzi and the others bow, the natives of the immortal domain also bowed. A moment later, countless voices of praise rang out in the entire celestial realm. Countless living beings shouted loudly, bowing down towards Liu. Heaven's heart manifests, and the great Tao is complete. Liu grabbed the ball of light that had manifested from the immortal domain and slapped it into the void. Rays of light spread out from the ball of light like divine chains of order. They connected the great Tao, intertwined with the origin, and connected with the laws of the entire immortal domain. However, they didn't merge with each other. The lesser immortal realm was created by Heavenly Emperor Huang. This was Heavenly Emperor Huang's immortal realm, so it was naturally different from the real immortal realm. It was like an organ transplant. No matter how compatible it was, there would always be some rejection. When the laws of order of the immortal domain merged with the laws of the immortal domain, the first thing that would happen was not integration, but fierce resistance. This was what No Beginning meant when he said, "Mending the heavens is not an easy task. I've been a ruler once, so I have some experience in this kind of thing." Liu smiled nonchalantly, and endless light bloomed from his body. A Tai Chi yin-yang fish with black and white intertwined appeared. Yin and yang evolved, the 5 elements generated and suppressed, and the 8 trigrams derived. A Tai Chi diagram that blotted out the sky covered the entire sky. At the beginning of chaos, Yin and Yang appeared, and heaven and earth were born. Tai Chi Yin and Yang formed the great Tao, and the 5 elements and 8 trigrams proved the heavens. A majestic song rang out, and visions swirled in the sky. At the beginning of heaven and earth, Yin and Yang evolved, and time and space flowed, and all things were born. It was as if the heavens and the earth had been split apart. Vast divine light swept through heaven and earth. Starting from the immortal domain in his hand, it followed the intertwined laws of heaven and earth. The 2 origins of matter and order surged out, running through the entire world. Tao integration. With a slap of his hand, The immortal domain's ball of light instantly collapsed and merged with the entire immortal domain. Clang! The sound of heavenly music reverberated, and the great Tao resonated. Flowers fell from the sky, and golden springs surged from the ground. Divine light filled the sky like a vast ocean, and endless immortal light surged like huge waves. The entire world seemed to have come alive again. The Grand Celestial Venerable is truly omnipotent. Even Emperor No Beginning and Emperor Ruthless couldn't help but marvel at Li Yu's combat arts. Chapter 543. It's finally done. Li Yu exhaled and slowly retracted his hand. Even with the minor immortal realm left behind by Celestial Emperor Huang, Li Yu's act of mending the heavens had taken a lot out of him. He'd given it his all. I've spent so much effort, but I've gained a lot. Li Yu had a smile on his face as he looked down. With a single glance, everything in the immortal realms was clear in his heart. These were the laws of heaven and earth. Li Yu had spent so much effort mending the heavens partly to fulfill Celestial Emperor Huang's wish, but mostly for the sake of the immortal realm's laws of heaven and earth. In the process of mending the heavens, Li Yu had completely sorted out the laws of heaven and earth of the immortal realm. They were now completely under Li Yu's control. Celestial Emperor Huang is unfathomably powerful. Li Yu's success in mending the heavens and completely sorting out the immortal realm's laws was mainly due to Celestial Emperor Huang's minor immortal realm. Without the minor immortal realm, Li Yu wouldn't have been able to mend and master the immortal realm's laws even if he'd formed the origins of matter and order. I owe you a lot. When I return to the ancient Chaos era, I'll have to make it up to you and settle this karma. Li Yu smiled and turned to look in the direction of the mortal realm. Now that the immortal realm has been repaired, the path to immortality won't be so difficult anymore. Therefore, I'll have to set a rule for ascension. At this moment, the immortal realm's laws are in my hands. My heart is the heart of the heavens, and my will is the will of the heavens. Therefore, Li Yu reached out and pressed down. Heaven and earth resonated with the great Tao. The immortal realm is mended, the great Tao is undamaged, the path to immortality is reopened. These were the laws of heaven and earth. The mortal realm. Endless immortal light suddenly erupted from the flying immortal planet. A boundless gate enshrouded in immortal light materialized in the endless void. The boundless gate of heaven covered the sky and covered the earth. One could see this vast gate of heaven hanging high in the void from any corner of the universe. What's going on? What's going on? Could it be that the path to immortality has opened? Seeing such a phenomenon, all the cultivators in the human world were alarmed. They all stretched their necks and looked at the heavenly gate in the sky. The celestial realm is restored, the great Tao is undamaged, and the path to immortality is reopened. A mighty heavenly voice reverberated throughout the entire universe. Complete the immortal domain? The path to immortality has been reopened. Great. That's great. Countless cultivators were overjoyed. This was especially so for some cultivators who were nearing the end of their lifespans. They immediately cried tears of joy. In the name of Taishang, I determine the laws of ascension. When a cultivator reaches the third level of immortal foundation, the Tao-severing realm, they can knock open the heavenly gate and ascend to the immortal realms. As soon as these words were spoken, heaven and earth shook. Grand Celestial Venerable's merits are boundless. In the human realm, countless cultivators kowtowed respectfully toward the gate of heaven that appeared in the sky. Immortal ascension. Become an immortal. In the entire human realm, countless cultivators above the cutting path king level rushed into the sky, knocked on the gate of heaven, and entered the mystic realm. The mystic realm is so big. It's a good thing to increase the population. Li Yu smiled and left the state of being one with the world. He flew down and landed beside everyone. Taishang Venerable's magnificent feat of mending the heavens is truly admirable. Taishang Venerable had always thought that Li Yu came from the ancient Chaos era and appeared in this era to mend the heavens. He was full of admiration for Li Yu's hundreds of millions of years of hard work. It's just a wish that was fulfilled. Li Yu smiled and nodded. Everything is done. I'll take my leave now. After bidding farewell to Taishang Venerable and Vicious, Li Yu led a few subordinates and flew into the sky, disappearing into the horizon. A moment later, Li Yu led a group of subordinates to a towering mountain that stretched into the clouds. Let's set up the shopping center here. Mending the immortal realms would have great prospects in the future. Setting up the shopping center here was very valuable no matter how one looked at it. Sky Burial Island out. With a wave of his hand, he released the Sky Burial Island from the resource vault. The huge floating island floated in the void, faintly discernible between the swirling clouds. The coffin pulled by 9 dragons landed on Sky Burial Island, perfectly fitting with the terrain of Sky Burial Island. System, using Sky Burial Island and the coffin pulled by 9 dragons as materials, build the shopping center. At his command, a colorful brilliance enveloped the entire Sky Burial Island. The entire island and the coffin pulled by 9 dragons melted together, constantly changing shape and reshaping. A moment later, a huge heavenly palace in the clouds appeared in the void. Celestial clouds filled the air and thousands of auspicious clouds. 9 huge black dragons circled around the heavenly palace in the clouds, meandering and swimming. Not bad. 9 black dragons turned into guardian spirit. This shopping center is already very extraordinary. Li Yu nodded in satisfaction. Then, he cast a permanent rune on the foothold in the mall. The few of you will settle down in this heavenly palace from now on and guard it for me. They had all been taken in by Li Yu as subordinate. They were suitable to guard the shopping center in this realm. Yes, sir. The saintly being and the others quickly accepted the order. It's finally over. Li Yu brought them to the heavenly palace in the clouds. He sat down in the main hall and began to consider the problem of returning to the ancient Chaos era. With my current realm, I can go back in time and return to the ancient Chaos era. But it's not safe. In the ancient Chaos era, there were many tyrannical existences like celestial kings, quasi-celestial emperors, and celestial emperors. These existences could go back in time. If Li Yu returned to the ancient Chaos era by going back in time, he would leave traces in time, and it was very likely that someone would find out. This was very troublesome, and it was not conducive to Li Yu's follow-up actions. To be safe, I'd better use the system's teleportation function to return to the ancient Chaos era. After making up his mind, Li Yu immediately got up and went to the interplanar teleportation device in the shopping center. He activated the system's function to conceal the secrets of heaven and hide the cause and effect. Do I still need a positioning object to return to the ancient Chaos era? Li Yu was about to activate the interplanar teleportation device when he suddenly heard the system's prompt that he still needed a positioning object to determine the space-time coordinates. Heaven Emperor Huang left behind an item. The coffin of 9 dragons has become part of the shopping center and can no longer be located. However, the desolate tower is still Heaven Emperor Huang's item. After extracting the Heaven Emperor Huang's imprint in the desolate tower as a positioning object, Li Yu activated the interplanar teleportation device. Heaven Emperor Huang, I'm coming for you. The qi of heaven and earth and the qi of yin and yang poured into the interplanar teleportation device. Li Yu activated the device. Buzz, the interplanar teleportation device trembled, and a clear glaze of light burst out. Space-time changed, and heaven and earth reversed. Following the aura of Heaven Emperor Huang's imprint, Li Yu determined a space-time node, broke through the space-time torrent, and entered the ancient Chaos era where heroes were everywhere. Roar, a huge beast's roar shook heaven and earth. In front of him was a desolate mountain range. Between the towering mountains, wild beasts ran amok. Huge roars rose and fell one after another. The huge roars shook heaven and earth, stirring up the wind and clouds. It really is the ancient chaos era. Liu stood in the void and swept a glance at the mountain range below. He discovered that there were countless wild beasts roaming about in the mountains, and a bloody and violent aura soared into the sky. In this era, the survival of the human race is very difficult. Liu sighed and turned his head to look beyond the mountains, at a simple and primitive small mountain village. Is that Stone Village? In that small village, Liu saw a half-dead withered tree. The tree's crown was gone, and only a section of the tree trunk was left. The trunk was very large, and it was completely charred black. Its diameter was more than 30 feet. On this section of the trunk, there was only a weak branch, but this branch was very mysterious. The branches and leaves were sparkling and translucent like jade, and they were dark green all over. They emitted a faint halo that enveloped the entire small mountain village, as if they were protecting it. Chapter 544. Little brats, come out and train. The morning sun rose from the peak of the mountain, shining a brilliant golden light over the small mountain village. A tall and muscular man was standing on a huge rock in the village, holding a thick bone club. He was shouting at the top of his lungs, "Coming! Coming!" A group of children answered loudly and hurriedly ran out of their houses to gather in the open space of the village. There were dozens of children, ranging from a few years old to over 10 years old. Each and every one of them was tall and strong like calves. When the sun rises, the vitality is the strongest. Training your body at this time is very beneficial to your growth. The desolate mountain range is full of danger. Only by training a strong body can you survive in this desolate mountain range. The middle-aged man holding the bone club pointed at the group of children below and warned them with a serious face. "Do you all understand?" "Understood." The children answered in unison, and then they all got into their stances to train their bodies. I also understand." At this time, a 1 or 2 year old little guy, who looked like he was carved from jade and had tender arms and legs, followed behind the group of children. He raised his little hands and answered in a childish voice. The little guy's skin was white and tender, and his body was full of baby fat. In particular, there were still milk stains at the corner of his mouth that had not been wiped dry. He clumsily copied the movements of the other children, waving his fists and feet. He looked very cute. "All right, Heaven Emperor Huang is still drinking milk." Liu's figure turned into nothingness and hid to the side. Seeing the little guy with milk stains, he rubbed his forehead and was speechless. Speaking of which, the Heaven Emperor Huang, who ruled over the ancient times, really doesn't have the might of the invincible Heaven Emperor. Seeing him like this, I can't help but want to pinch him. Liu smiled and looked at the little guy, and his heart gave birth to another sigh. He was born supreme, but his supreme bone was dug out when he was still an infant, and he almost lost his life. He was reborn from nirvana and rose in adversity. After experiencing countless hardships and dying countless times, he finally became an immortal emperor, the supreme ruler of the world. Heaven Emperor Huang's life could be said to be tortured to death. She was almost killed when she was still a baby. After that, he went back and forth several times. In the end, his son died, his brother died, and even Willow Deity died. He was all alone, fighting on his own. Heavenly Emperor Huang could be said to have lived a miserable life, even after using the method of reincarnation to resurrect those who had passed away. In the end, Heavenly Emperor Huang still fought alone. He ruled over the ancient times and fought against the source of darkness. Little Shirtu, what you lack the most in your life is a helper. You have been fighting alone, facing all the difficulties and obstacles by yourself. Although he's a hero, it's too tragic. Liu smiled and looked at the little guy. So? I'll give you some helpers, so that you will no longer be alone and will no longer be fighting alone. Liu turned his head to look at the blackened withered tree beside him. When he saw the lone branch, he sighed again. Willow deity, immortal ancient guardian spirit, an immortal king-level existence. Now that I'm heavily injured and my true spirit is dormant, I don't have much strength left. With a sweep of his divine sense, Liu also sensed Willow deity's condition. At this moment, Willow deity was at a critical moment of nirvanic rebirth. Its true spirit was still asleep. You are little Shida's greatest helper in his life. I'll help you recover as soon as possible. Liu reached out and took out a ginseng fruit from the ginseng tree in the resource warehouse. With a flick of his finger, the ginseng fruit turned into a stream of light and shot into the blackened withered tree. The ginseng fruit was also an elixir of immortality. It could allow an immortal emperor to live another life. Although it could not allow the immortal king-level willow deity to recover its full strength, it could still restore a portion of its strength. Buzz! The blackened willow tree shook violently and burst into green light that filled the sky. Green branches grew out from the tree trunk one after another. The charred tree trunk fell apart piece by piece, and an endless amount of vitality burst out violently. In an instant, the blackened tree trunk turned into ashes and scattered everywhere. In the green light that filled the sky, a 10-foot-tall willow tree that was as green as jade stood in the small village. It was emitting endless immortal light. The immortal light was like rain, and the sky was filled with multicolored light. The sacred light enveloped the entire mountain village, and endless vitality filled the air. At this moment, the flowers and trees in the entire mountain village suddenly grew crazily. Even the doors and windows sprouted green shoot. Everyone in the mountain village only felt a warm divine spring cleansing their bodies. All the pain in their bodies was swept away. It was as if their entire body had been cleansed by this divine spring, removing impurities and purifying their essence. Even the elders in the village felt as if they had become 20 years younger in an instant. The wrinkles on their faces faded, their sparse teeth became denser, and their pale hair grew black roots. The willow deity has appeared. Everyone in the mountain village ran out in surprise and surrounded the altar in front of the willow tree, respectfully worshipping the willow deity. Buzz! The willow tree stretched out its branches as if responding to the worship of the mountain village people. After the worship was completed, the willow tree slowly withdrew its radiance. The immortal light was no longer visible, and the divine splendor was no longer visible. The sparkling and translucent willow tree also became ordinary. Thank you for your help. In a place where the people in the mountain village couldn't see, in the space that was like the separation of two worlds, the willow deity manifested its spiritual body and appeared in front of Liu. Countless willow catkins fluttered in the wind. A woman with a peerless appearance, as bright as the moon, stood there elegantly. Her fluttering hair was like thousands of silk ribbons hanging down from the willow tree. So the willow deity is a woman? Liu was a bit surprised. Then, he smiled and nodded at the willow deity. You and I are both existences of the same level. Seeing you in trouble, how can I not help? May I ask your distinguished self's name? The willow deity looked at Liu with a bit of confusion. The willow deity that was born in the immortal era actually found that it didn't recognize the person in front of it. This made the willow deity very surprised. There were only a few immortal king-level existences in the entire world. Suddenly, an unknown immortal king appeared. This was really too shocking. I am the Grand Supreme. Greetings, Tao friend. Liu smiled and cupped his hands. It wasn't good for him to explain his background in detail, so he could only vaguely pass it by. Tao? Your distinguished self actually came from the Tao sect of the early years of the immortal era? This world had the Western sect, but it also had the Tao sect. Only, after the immortal era, the true Tao sect had long disappeared without a trace. In the present world, only a few scattered heretical sects were left. Lu Qing greets the Grand Supreme. In the immortal era, the Tao sect's experts respectfully called him Heavenly Sovereign. The Tao sect's heavenly sovereign was a completely different concept from the heavenly sovereign that some supreme beings called themselves. The Willow deity thought that Li Yu came from the immortal era, so it naturally greeted Li Yu with the ancient title. I wonder what the heavenly sovereign came into the world this time for? At the immortal king level, very few people would come out into the world. The Willow deity was also a bit curious about Li Yu's arrival. Darkness is about to arrive. Another shocking calamity is coming. Li Yu sighed. I sensed a trace of heaven's mysteries while meditating. The opportunity to pacify the source of darkness is in the great wilderness. Therefore, I came to look for it. Darkness is about to arrive? Is there going to be another catastrophe? The Willow deity's expression became serious. It hurriedly asked Li Yu, "Has the heavenly sovereign found the opportunity to pacify the darkness?" "I found it." Li Yu smiled and nodded. With a wave of his hand, a window opened in this isolated space, and a figure appeared. It was a little guy whose milk was still wet. Chapter 545. That's him? Willow deity raised her eyebrows in surprise when she saw the little guy. Although he's a natural-born sovereign, his sovereign bone has already been taken away. Even if he's reborn, he might not be able to reach the peak. Without destruction, there can be no construction. Nirvana rebirth. Li Yu smiled at the little guy. I saw a trace of heaven's secrets. He's the key to everything. So, Willow deity, please protect him as he grows. I hit it off with him too. I'm suitable to be his Tao protector. Willow deity looked at the little guy with a childish voice, and a smile appeared on her face. I have a cultivation technique here. Willow deity, you can refer to it. Also, this village is the Sure tribe's ancestral land. These people can also be cultivated. I also have a cultivation technique. Willow deity, please pass it on to them. Li Yu handed over 2 jade slips. One was the heavenly wood technique, and the other was the human immortal martial way. Heavenly wood technique? Human immortal martial way? Willow deity took the 2 cultivation technique. Her soul touched them and instantly understood the 2 cultivation technique. Although Willow deity's current strength was not as strong as before, her knowledge was not lacking. Even Willow deity was deeply shocked when she saw the 2 cultivation techniques that Li Yu gave her. In ancient times, it was said that there was a heavenly wood technique that connected the 10,000 world. This cultivation technique takes the meaning of the heavenly wood technique and achieves the wood origin of the connate 5 element. It's indeed a Taoist inheritance. It's unfathomable. Willow deity was full of praise for the heavenly wood technique. Although the combat power of this cultivation technique was not very strong, it had a deep understanding of the wood origin. It understood the principle of withering and flourishing, and its vitality was exuberant. This cultivation technique was simply too useful for Willow deity's recovery. Human immortal martial way is also very extraordinary. Not only can this cultivation technique cultivate a strong body, but it also has the ability to be reborn from a drop of blood, ever-changing, and lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Once the vacuum is shattered, the body can become a saint. This should be the cultivation technique of the Taoist protectors. Seeing these 2 techniques, the Willow deity firmly believed in Li Yu's identity as the Grand Empyrean. These 2 martial arts were both orthodox Taoism martial arts. If one wasn't from Taoism, it would naturally be impossible for them to obtain the legacies of orthodox Taoism. Thank you, Sky Sovereign, for your generous gift. The elixir of immortality allowed Willow deity to recover a portion of her strength, and she also obtained 2 cultivation methods from Li Yu. Willow deity was very grateful to Li Yu. Darkness is coming. I still need to make some preparations. Fellow Taoist Willow deity also needs to recover as soon as possible. Li Yu warned Willow deity. I understand. Willow deity nodded. Darkness was about to arrive and a calamity was about to arrive. Without enough strength, death was right in front of them. The willow deity naturally wouldn't ignore this. "I'll leave this place to fellow Taoist willow deity. I'll take my leave now." Liu cupped his fists and bowed. Then, his figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. The calamity is about to arrive. Even someone like the Grand Empyrean has to be on guard. I also need to make preparations early. Willow deity took in a deep breath. Her figure turned into a streak of light and returned to her main body. In Stone Village, the countless strands of silk hanging down from the willow waved again. Rays of light rippled outwards like ripples. "Everyone in Stone Village, quickly come and see me." A voice transmitted into the minds of everyone in Stone Village. Willow deity summoning? Hearing this summon, everyone in Stone Village hurriedly ran under the willow tree and bowed in front of the altar. "Greetings, willow deity. I wonder what instructions does willow deity have for summoning us?" In this world, the relationship between guardian spirits and humans was to live and die together. Their fates were one. No matter if it was a village, a town, an ancient country, or even a sacred ground, they couldn't do without the protection of a guardian spirit. Ever since this willow tree that was struck by lightning many years ago fell into Stone Village and became their guardian spirit, willow deity and Stone Village had already become closely connected. "I have received the help of an expert and recovered some of my strength. I also know that this world is about to face a calamity." The willow tree's tens of thousands of branches stretched outwards. Rays of light rippled outwards. Willow deity's voice transmitted into everyone's minds. "The calamity is about to arrive. Without enough strength, you won't be able to survive. Senior Grand Empyrean has bestowed a cultivation method and ordered me to pass it on." The dark green branches scattered out rays of light and entered the foreheads of everyone in Stone Village. "This is the cultivation method bestowed by Grand Empyrean. You must cultivate it seriously and increase your strength as soon as possible. Only then will you have the strength to survive in the calamity." "Many thanks, willow deity. Many thanks, Grand Empyrean." Everyone in Stone Village, regardless of age, received the mortal-immortal martial path inheritance. Although they didn't know the origin of Grand Empyrean, since willow deity said that he was an expert, then he must be an expert. Rebirth from a drop of blood? Myriad transformations? Sanctification of the flesh? Stone Village's old chief, Shi Yunfeng, also left the great wilderness in the past and learned cultivation methods. At this moment, when he saw this mortal-immortal martial path, he was immediately deeply shaken. Only cultivating the body's qi and blood, not cultivating any symbol precious techniques, can actually cultivate such a divine ability? It really is a cultivation method bestowed by an expert senior. Stone Village has hope of rising up. The old chief cried tears of joy and deeply bowed towards the altar. "Grandpa Chief, this cultivation method seems to be easier to learn than the symbols you taught me." The little guy spoke with a childish voice. According to the mortal-immortal martial path's body refining fist technique, he seemed to be fiddling with it. Every move and style seemed extremely ordinary. However, when the little guy brandished his fists and raised his legs, the qi and blood within his body were vast and mighty. Indistinctly, the rumbling sounds of angry tides could be heard. Qi and blood tides? This little guy is indeed extraordinary. The old chief stared at the little guy, his two eyes shining. "Good child. Good child." Hong, hong, hong. At this time, the great earth began to violently shake as if there was an earthquake. Everyone in Stone Village was startled. Looking at the scene in the distance, they were so shocked that their bodies began to tremble. They only saw that in the distant wilderness, there was a figure whose entire body was covered in golden hair. Its body was even taller than a mountain, and it carried a huge black club that seemed to support the heavens as it walked step by step towards the depths of the desolate mountains. Every step this figure took caused the earth to tremble and the mountains to sway. What is this thing? Is this the calamity that the willow deity spoke of? Seeing the enormous figure in the distance that connected the heavens and the earth, everyone was shocked to the point of being dumbstruck. Even though they lived in the desolate mountains for a long time, Stone Village's people had never seen this kind of creature before. An archaic descendant was already in existence that was incomparably strong. Just how strong was this creature right now? Hong Long. Not long after that golden creature left, a huge sound rang out in the sky. An enormous and boundless vicious bird that covered the sky pierced through the air. A pair of blood-colored eyes emitted a monstrous fiendish aura that was incomparably ruthless. This vicious bird was originally flying directly over Stone Village. When it approached Stone Village, it suddenly saw that green and jade-like willow tree. The vicious bird seemed to be startled and hurriedly flapped its wings, making a detour far away. These vicious beasts and fierce birds entered the mountains. Could it be that a mountain treasure appeared in the depths of the desolate mountains? The old chief frowned, and his heart faintly felt uneasy. These kinds of big guys, once they started fighting, the desolate lands would definitely be turned into ruins. This would be a heaven-shaking calamity. Chapter 546. The sky-devouring sparrow and Zhu Yan really came. Deep in the desolate mountain range, Li Yu appeared at the peak of an inconspicuous mountain. Standing with his hands behind his back, Li Yu looked into the distance. A giant golden ape shook the earth, and a ferocious bird soared through the sky. In addition to these two, the Fire Nation's guardian spirit, the vermilion bird, and a Cheongqi have already entered the depths of the desolate mountain range. Are you looking for the so-called mountain treasure? Li Yu smiled and lowered his head to look at the mountain beneath his feet. He stretched out his hand and pressed down. With a brush of the chi of heaven and earth, a square box made of bone that was about a foot in size buried deep under the mountain fell into Li Yu's hand. This is the so-called mountain treasure. With a wave of his hand, the white box opened with a swish. Inside the box was a stack of scrolls made of animal skin. Li Yu took out the scrolls and read them one by one. The 6 Paths of Reincarnation Heavenly Art, the supreme inheritance of the Supreme Hall. It's indeed extraordinary. Li Yu scanned it with his divine soul and memorized the 6 Paths of Reincarnation Heavenly Art. Even with Li Yu's current cultivation level, he felt some admiration for this art. The Supreme Hall Senior who created this art is truly a peerless genius. After comprehending the 6 Paths of Reincarnation Heavenly Art, Li Yu formed several hand seals. 6 hand seals were formed and 6 black holes appeared. Time flowed and the world changed. Life grew old and died, and plants withered and flourished. The universe died out and returned to chaos. When chaos was first born, yin and yang appeared. When the beginning of Xian Wang, all things came to life. Endless phenomena appeared, and the reincarnation of heaven and earth, and all things changed. As expected of the Supreme Hall's heavenly art, Li Yu dispersed the hand seals and dispelled the phenomena around him. In the future, Heaven Emperor Huang left the 6 Paths of Reincarnation Fist in the forbidden grounds of the desolate ancient. Compared to the 6 Paths of Reincarnation Heavenly Art, the 6 Paths of Reincarnation Fist is only the tip of the iceberg. Putting down the 6 Paths of Reincarnation scroll, Li Yu flipped through the rest of the beast skin scrolls. Among them, he saw the True Roar Treasured Art, Green Luan Treasured Art, Bai Fang Treasured Art, Taotai Treasured Art, Swan Ni Treasured Art, Great Prung Treasured Art, and other innate treasured arts of the pure-blooded true spirit race. These are all the pure-blooded true spirit treasured arts the Supreme Hall has collected. Li Yu flipped through them and memorized all the precious techniques and divine abilities. There are a total of 24 precious techniques and abilities. The legendary 9 sons of the dragon are all among them. There were also some innate treasured techniques of other pure-blooded divine beasts. These things are still very valuable. With a wave of his hand, Liu collected the beast skin scroll into the resource vault. All that was left in his hand was a tattered and ancient scroll. What was recorded on this scroll was an incomplete swan and eye treasured technique, but its contents were not simple. Does the Supreme Palace also play this kind of trick? One of the most powerful sword arts in the world, the grass symbol sword art, is hidden here. The grass symbol sword art originated from a stalk of grass, the nine-leaf sword grass. During the primordial era, there was a stalk of grass that was listed as one of the primordial vicious 10. This stalk of grass had 9 leaves, and the leaves were shaped like swords. When the sword leaves slashed out, spacetime would be destroyed, and heaven and earth would be overturned. Its sharpness was unstoppable. The grass symbol sword art was extremely sharp. There was nothing it could not cut through, nothing it could not break. This sword art is also very valuable to me. Liu already had the Skysplitter sword art and Qi Song Zi's Great Void sword Qi. With this grass symbol sword art, even if he did not become a sword cultivator, Liu's sword arts would still be extremely powerful. Then let me experience this supreme sword art. With a wave of his hand, the beast skin scroll was instantly destroyed, revealing a silver page. Clang! Clang! A silver sword Qi suddenly shot out, cutting through everything in the world with its incomparably sharp sword Qi. Fortunately, I was prepared. A layer of intertwining black and white light enveloped the silver page, preventing the sword Qi from breaking through the seal. Otherwise, if this sword Qi were to rush out, even this desolate mountain range would probably be slashed into pieces. This is not the sword Qi of the nine-leaf sword grass itself, but the sword Qi that was imperceptibly carved into the sword art when someone recorded it down. Liu sensed the strength of the sword Qi. It was roughly equivalent to the strength of a great emperor, which was the sovereign of this world. It's quite a pity that this sword Qi has been destroyed. I'll leave it behind. He reached out with his hand, and as the Taiji Yin-Yang symbol spun, the sword Qi was sealed. After I find the system's host, this thing can be used as a trump card. After putting away the sealed sword Qi, Liu carefully examined this supreme sword art. A stalk of grass can cut through the sun, moon, and stars. The grass symbol sword art truly is one of the strongest sword arts. Liu's spirit touched it, and he quickly understood the grass symbol sword art. This sword art was all about sharpness, an extreme sharpness. The grass symbol sword art was the innate ability of the nine-leaf sword grass. It didn't require a sword. A single strand of hair or a single finger could unleash an unstoppable sword Qi that could cut through anything. With a flick of his finger, a silver thread shot out from the tip of his finger, silently cleaving a huge mountain in half from top to bottom. The extreme sharpness of the sword cut through the huge mountain as easily and silently as if it was cutting through tofu. The grass symbol sword art really is powerful. Liu nodded, and the beast skin scroll containing the cursive symbol sword technique was also stored away. System: scan all the cultivation methods collected in the beast skin scroll and record them into the resource vault. Although he had memorized all the techniques and treasured arts, it was still necessary to record a copy of them in the system's database. After all, in this era, Liu planned to create a system to give the desolate celestial emperor a powerful enough helper. I do have a candidate for the system's host. Liu thought of the little guy who became Little Stone's substitute in the second ancestral ground. He attracted the attention of others in Little Stone's place, fighting for a chance at survival for Little Stone. Meanwhile, he was framed until his legs were crippled and he was hanging on by a thread. This is the story of a bullied youth who rose up in the face of adversity, triumphantly advancing all the way to the peak of his life. Liu smiled and nodded. He lowered his head to look at the white jade bone box in his hand. This bone box contains the Transcendence chapter of the true primordial record. The Transcendence chapter of the true primordial record was the method to transcend and become an immortal in this world. Even though Li Yu had already become an immortal, he was still interested in the Transcendence chapter. It would allow him to gain more insight. Unfortunately, the Transcendence chapter isn't complete. The first half of the true primordial record is in Stone Village, and the other half of the Transcendence chapter is also in Stone Village. Stone Village is indeed the place where all kinds of karma converge. Li Yu smiled. There's no rush for the true primordial record. Let's deal with the matter in front of us first. With a wave of his hand, Li Yu put away the bone box and looked at the desolate land. The origin of order controlled the laws and stood above them. Its gaze penetrated the 9 hells. Everything under the desolate land was in Li Yu's eyes. In the depths of the desolate mountain range, there was a gigantic dragon turtle that was as large as a continent. It carried an ancient and majestic palace on its back, and it was in deep slumber underground. This is the Supreme Hall. This was the most mysterious inheritance sect in this world. There was only one person in every generation, and all of them were invincible sovereigns. This thing is very useful. Not to mention the countless books and secret technique inheritances collected in the Supreme Hall, Li Yu wouldn't be able to resist the urge to make a move on that humongous dragon turtle. This dragon turtle was simply too big, too powerful, and too flashy. Li Yu naturally wouldn't let go of such a good thing. The Grand Empyrean is in charge of the Supreme Hall. Isn't this very suitable? Li Yu looked at the gigantic dragon turtle underground with a smile on his face. Chapter 547. Let's capture this dragon tortoise first. After locating the dragon tortoise's sleeping position, Li Yu waved his hand and unleashed a yellow light. He activated the Earth Escape technique and burrowed underground. Li Yu concealed his aura as he flew through the earth veins, concealing all movements as he silently approached the dragon tortoise. I'm not trying to ambush you. With Li Yu's status, even he felt that it was beneath him to do such a sneaky thing. However, there was nothing he could do about it. The dragon tortoise was too big. If it was alarmed, it could easily turn everything within 100,000 miles into ruins with a wave of its claws or a flip of its body. Destroying everything within 100,000 miles and killing billions of humans and countless creatures was something Li Yu wouldn't do even if he didn't care about the lives of others. Thank goodness I didn't alarm it. Li Yu silently arrived beside the dragon tortoise. He was secretly relieved when he sensed the dragon tortoise's power with his soul. How is this a dragon tortoise? It's dragon son Bashya. The dragon tortoise and dragon son Bashya looked very similar, but their natures were worlds apart. Dragon son Bashya had the innate ability to control water, but it was also of the earth attribute. An earthen divine beast like it could easily flip the earth and destroy the great wilderness if it was enraged. More importantly, dragon son Bashya already possessed the strength of an autarch. This was already equivalent to the level of a great emperor. It didn't take much effort for him to destroy the land with a single palm. Dragon son Bashya and the Supreme Hall have become one? Li Yu released his consciousness and discovered that dragon son Bashya had become one with the ancient palace on its back. The Supreme Hall is truly generous. The palace and dragon son Bashya had become one. The entire palace had become a part of Bashya's body, turning it into a moving, supreme headquarters. This kind of spending was indeed extraordinary. I've even captured a few dozen great emperors. I've even taken 3 of the worldly immortals into the resource vault. Compared to me, this kind of spending is nothing. Li Yu smiled and pointed his finger at the giant dragon turtle's head, which was as big as a mountain. Soul Catcher. With a brush of yin and yang energies, Li Yu pulled dragon son Bashya's divine soul out. Roar, roar, roar. Inside the black and white seal of the Taiji heavenly prison, Bashya's soul roared, but he couldn't resist at all. Don't shout. This is a good thing. You'll benefit from it later. Li Yu smiled and waved his hand, collecting Baxia's soul into the resource vault. System: erase all the sacrificial imprints in Baxia's soul. In the name of the Grand Empyrean, I will be the Supreme Hall's patriarch and reconstruct Dragon Son Baxia's memories. With Li Yu's current cultivation level, it was naturally not difficult for him to modify his memories. It was just that the system's functions were more convenient to use, so Li Yu was too lazy to do it himself. A moment later, Dragon Son Baxia's soul was cleansed and his memories were reconstructed. I'll add a seal of loyalty to be on the safe side. He took out Baxia's soul and placed the seal of loyalty on it with a flick of his finger. Alright, soul, return to your body. With a wave of his hand, Baxia's soul entered Baxia's enormous body. Baxia greets the Supreme Patriarch. After the soul entered Baxia's body, the enormous dragon son Baxia nodded his head and bowed at Li Yu. Baxia's body glowed yellow as he bowed. His enormous head moved underground as if he was moving in water. The earth didn't tremble at all. The power of the earth is indeed something. Li Yu nodded with a smile. In that case, I'll give you some benefits. Li Yu waved his hand and sent out 2 balls of light. He taught Baxia the great earth scripture and Baxia's true art of the human immortal martial path. Thank you for the arts, Patriarch. The 2 arts fused into Baxia's soul were both very beneficial to him. The great earth scripture could strengthen his power of the earth, while Baxia's true art could purify Baxia's bloodline and refine his blood. Given Baxia's supreme Baxia cultivation, he would be able to master these 2 techniques in no time. Baxia's true art of the human immortal martial path was the foundation of the human immortal martial path. It could be reborn from a single drop of blood. You should cultivate for now. I'll return to the Supreme Hall to take a look. The enormous palace on Baxia's back was the Supreme Hall. Li Yu stepped forward and walked to the front of the palace. There are indeed formations and restrictions. I need the 6 paths of reincarnation to open the palace. Li Yu glanced at the palace gates and raised his hand with a smile. Although I know the 6 paths of reincarnation, I've always been the one to set the rules. I won't follow your rules. He pressed his hand forward and a black and white light swept out. The energy of yin and yang enveloped the entire palace and erased all the formations and restrictions. This is much more pleasing to the eye. Li Yu smiled, waved his hand and opened the gates. He walked into the enormous palace. The palace was an enormous immortal residence. There were mountains, rivers, pavilions, terraces, and palaces. Not bad. Li Yu scanned the palace with his soul. Although it was very old, it was majestic. It wasn't extravagant, but it was exquisite. It's as good as my eternal immortal abode. Li Yu thought of the eternal immortal abode. I might as well refine the eternal immortal abode and this palace into one. From now on, Baxia would look even more imposing when he carried the palace around. Let's put away the useful things in the Supreme Hall first. The Supreme Hall didn't have many people, so most of the palace was empty. There was only the Scripture Pavilion, the Ancestral Master Hall, and a few other useful things. Everything else could be turned into materials. He walked into the Scripture Pavilion. The enormous Scripture Pavilion was filled with countless books. There were all kinds of talisman treasures, some ancient heavenly arts, and some miscellaneous note. These things are quite useful. With a wave of his hand, Li Yu collected all the books in the Scripture Pavilion. The only thing left is the Ancestral Master Hall. After leaving the Scripture Pavilion, Li Yu went to the Ancestral Master Hall. Apart from a few portraits of the Ancestral Masters, there was only a jade booklet and a golden book. The portraits of the Ancestral Masters, the jade booklet and the golden book. These were the historical legacies of the Supreme Hall. If Li Yu wanted to use the identity of the Supreme Hall's ancestral master, he couldn't do without these things. After putting away the portraits, the jade booklet, and the golden book, There was nothing else important in the Supreme Hall. Then let's start refining. With a flash, Liu appeared outside the palace, a small bronze hall in his hand. Disperse. With a shake of his hand, the eternal immortal abode collapsed into 480 million talismans. Combine. With a wave of his hand, the eternal immortal manor transformed into motes of light that fell into the Paragon Hall like raindrops. Combine the immortal abode and reconstruct the palace. Black and yellow energy swept out, instantly disintegrating the palace and merging with the eternal immortal abode's talisman dots of light. As the energy flowed, a giant palace slowly emerged from Dragon Prince Basha's carapace. The light receded, and the enormous palace reappeared. The outer appearance of the palace was still the same as the Supreme Palace. After all, the Supreme Palace had existed for a long time. Many people knew what the Supreme Palace looked like, so Liu didn't change it. The exterior hadn't changed, but the interior was different. The eternal immortal abode had been created from the Kingdom of Eternity, the Heavenly Tomb, and the Immortal Steel. Both the Kingdom of Eternity and the Heavenly Tomb each had a boundless minor world. Now that the Supreme Hall had merged with the eternal immortal abode, it also had a major minor world. As long as I hang my portrait in the Ancestral Master Hall and write my name on the Jade Booklet and Golden Book, I'll be the most authentic Ancestral Master of the Supreme Hall. Liu smiled as he walked into the newly created palace. Chapter 548. Let's go to the Ancestral Hall first and get an identity from the Supreme Hall. If he wanted to survive in this world, he had to have a clear background. An immortal king of unknown origins was too eye-catching. Even if the system blocked out karma, if he attracted the attention of some existences, such as that unlucky immortal emperor who was half dead from a drop of black blood from another world and became a demon, this would be very disadvantageous for Liu's next move. He walked into the Ancestral Hall and waved his hand to hang up the portraits of the Ancestral Masters. How can there not be a portrait of me in the Ancestral Hall? Liu looked at the oldest portrait. It was an ancient beast skin painting, depicting a figure wearing a green robe looking down on the world. System: extract the energy from the origin ancient mine in the resource vault and exchange it for a dragon skin. Make a portrait of me according to the style of this ancient scroll. Remember, it must be old and look like it has existed for countless years. A moment later, an ancient scroll with a vast aura appeared in Liu's hands. In the scroll, Liu stood in the chaotic void. Beneath his feet was a vast and boundless world. It was as if he was walking on the sky above the world. Not bad, it shows a bit of my elegance. Liu smiled and waved his hand, hanging the scroll in the middle of the Ancestral Hall. The Jade and Golden Books are simpler. The system directly inscribed Liu's title, Supreme Empyrean, at the beginning of the Jade and Golden Book. He took out the Jade and Golden Books, and a bit of yin and yang qi landed on the title, leaving a mark. Alright. Now I am the Supreme Hall's Supreme Patriarch in name only. After placing the Jade and Golden Books on the divine table in the Ancestral Hall, Liu turned and walked out of the Ancestral Hall, arriving at the library. System: scan the information in all the books. After recording all the treasured arts and secret techniques, Liu waved his hand and placed them in the library. The Supreme Hall's matters have basically been taken care of. Liu turned around and walked out of the palace. He glanced at Basya and saw that Basya was cultivating the Basya true art and condensing his blood essence. Not bad. Given Basya's autark strength and its enormous size, as well as the vast amount of blood and qi in its body, it'll be very easy for it to achieve a breakthrough. Sure enough, as soon as Liu finished speaking, Basya had already made a breakthrough. Boom! His qi and blood surged like a raging tide, and the acupoints all over his body rumbled. In just a few moments, Basya had achieved success in his cultivation. He had opened all his acupoints and broken through to the blood rebirth realm. Thank you for your teachings, Patriarch. After cultivating it, Basha's power has become even more condensed. Basha's humongous body had shrunk significantly. It was like an extremely fat man who had turned his fat into muscles. He had become even more capable and powerful. It's still a little big. However, as long as I continue cultivating it and reach the shape-shifting and vanquishing realm, I'll be able to completely condense my chi and blood. It won't be so exaggerated anymore. Even though Basha had shrunk, he was still 10,000 kilometers wide. If he couldn't change his size, he wouldn't be able to go anywhere. Standing on Basha's back, Liu looked up at the outside world and saw the 4 powerful venerate beasts still searching the desolate mountains. These guys are still looking for the so-called treasure mountain. A bone box that looked like white jade appeared in Liu's hand. This is what you're fighting over. The so-called treasure mountain is the inheritance of the Autarch Hall. When the bone box had landed in the desolate mountains, it had revealed a wisp of its aura and attracted the attention of several venerate realm beings nearby. The scarlet ape, the sky-devouring sparrow, the cheongchi, and the vermilion bird, these 4 pure-blooded venerate realm beings had entered the desolate mountains to search for this so-called treasure mountain. If Liu hadn't put the bone box away in advance, the 4 pure-blooded beings would have fought over the treasure mountain until the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The sky-devouring sparrow and the cheongchi hadn't been able to obtain the treasure mountain, so they destroyed villages and countries to vent their anger, devouring billions of humans in the desolate mountains. With me here, I naturally won't allow such a thing to happen. Liu withdrew his gaze. There's no rush. Let them search for a while first. It would be difficult for these 4 pure-blooded Exalt realm beings to find the so-called treasure mountain in the desolation wilderness range of 50,000 kilometers. I'll deal with the system first. When the time comes, I'll just toss out a bit of my aura and I'll be able to fish them out. Liu ignored the 4 pure-blooded beings and told Basha to keep an eye on them. Then, Liu left the underground world. The second ancestral ground of the Stone Clan is 300,000 kilometers away from here. It's in the western border of the Stone Kingdom. Liu released his divine soul and scanned the surrounding million kilometers. He found the location of the Stone Kingdom and the second ancestral ground of the Stone Clan. The second ancestral ground of the Stone Clan is just a dilapidated village. Liu's figure crossed thousands of mountains and rivers in an instant and arrived at the second ancestral ground of the Stone Clan. This was a dilapidated ancestral ground. Under the dim twilight, the ancestral ground of the Stone Clan was dilapidated and looked very gloomy. This was the second ancestral ground of the Stone Clan and also a place of exile. The Stone Clan was the royal family of the Stone Kingdom. Some of the clansmen with extraordinary status would be exiled from the capital to the second ancestral ground after making a mistake. In this dilapidated ancestral land, Liu saw a 2 to 3-year-old boy who was extremely thin and weak, limping as he walked. Is that Heavenly Emperor Huang's substitute in the second ancestral ground? What a pitiful little guy. Seeing the bullied child, Liu shook his head and sighed. Heavenly Emperor Huang suffered a calamity when he was young and narrowly escaped death. In order to fight for a chance of survival for him, you acted as his substitute and attracted all kinds of attack. You're also very pitiful. Heavenly Emperor Huang was born in the Stone Kingdom's martial king manor and was a direct descendant of the Stone Kingdom's royal family. He had the qualifications to compete for the throne of Stone Kingdom's human emperor. Heavenly Emperor Huang was a natural-born supreme being. There was a supreme being bone in his chest. His innate divine abilities contained immeasurable divine might. However, it was precisely because of this supreme bone that Heavenly Emperor Huang suffered a tragic fate. Heavenly Emperor Huang's grandfather, Shi Zhongtian, killed a young Pishio in the 100 Races battlefield in order to find pure-blooded true spirit blood to refine Heavenly Emperor Huang's body. This angered the adult Pishio. Under the pursuit of the adult Pishio, Shi Zhongtian lost an arm and fled the 100 Races battlefield, disappearing without a trace. Heavenly Emperor Huang's parents, Shi Xiling and his wife, left the infant Heavenly Emperor Huang in the care of his cousin Shi Ziting and his wife in order to find Shi Zhongtian's whereabouts. The two of them set off for the great wilderness to find Shi Zhongtian's whereabouts. Then, this was the beginning of the tragedy. Shi Ziting's son, Shi Yi, was born with double pupils and had the bearing of an ancient sage. With the power of his double pupils, he saw the supreme bone in Heavenly Emperor Huang's chest. Shi Yi's mother dug out Heavenly Emperor Huang's supreme bone and implanted it into Shi Yi's body. She extracted Heavenly Emperor Huang's origin true blood to nourish the transplanted supreme bone. Heavenly Emperor Huang was on his last breath and narrowly escaped death. Then, Shi Xiling and his wife returned to the martial imperial manor. When they saw Heavenly Emperor Huang's miserable state, they drew their sword in anger and caused a ruckus in the martial imperial manor, killing Shi Yi's mother. A supreme being who lost his supreme bone was no longer a supreme being. Heavenly Emperor Huang was abandoned by the martial imperial manor's clansmen. Everyone supported the man with double pupils to suppress Shi Xiling and banish Shi Xiling's family to the second ancestral land. Shi Yi's mother was from the Rain clan, which was also a noble clan in Stone Country. When Heavenly Emperor Huang's family was in trouble, the Rain clan naturally had to exterminate them. Therefore, this 2- or 3-year-old child became Heavenly Emperor Huang's substitute to attract the enemy's attention. Meanwhile, Heavenly Emperor Huang was placed in the first ancestral land by Shi Xiling and his wife, which was Stone Village. In order to restore Heavenly Emperor Huang's vitality, Shi Xiling and his wife went deep into the immemorial Divine Mountain to search for sacred medicine and never returned. Heavenly Emperor Huang narrowly escaped death. His vitality was stimulated and he slowly recovered. He was the little guy from Stone Village who was still wet behind the ears. Therefore, Heavenly Emperor Huang, you miserable substitute, from now on, I will be your comrade who will fight alongside you and conquer the endless void. Liu had already made up his mind that this tragic child would be the new system host. Chapter 549. Cough, cough. The little boy limped to the front of the old courtyard. While coughing, he moved his feet with great difficulty. In front of the courtyard there were several limestone steps. To an ordinary person, these few steps were something that could be easily crossed with a single step. However, for this lame boy, it was a difficult and painful torture. Huff, huff. The little boy climbed up the steps with great difficulty. While supporting his injured lame leg, his little face was filled with pain. Sweat dripped down from his forehead. At the entrance of the courtyard, there were 2 tall and sturdy middle-aged men. These 2 men were the servants of the second ancestral land of the Stone clan. Seeing the little boy moving his feet with great difficulty and pain, these 2 servants did not have any intention to help. Instead, they crossed their arms and sneered mockingly. "Young master, you're really lucky. Even after being bitten by the poison dragon, you still won't die." One of the servants sneered, "In order to expel the poison from your body, the old man probably won't live for more than 2 days. Wait until the old man dies, hee. Chi. What young master? I heard the master of the Rain clan say that this brat might not be the young master." The other servant curled his lips in disdain. "It's very likely that he's the descendant of that old man in the manor. The old man is about to die. Young master, why are you still holding on like this? Aren't you tired? Wait until the old man dies, then you might as well follow him, hee. The second ancestral land, the land of exile. Ever since this young master arrived, the Rain clan had continuously bribed the servants of the manor. The 2 servants at the entrance of the courtyard had already been bribed by the Rain clan. The old man that the servants spoke of was the person in charge of the second ancestral land of the Stone clan. At this moment, this person was about to die, and the servants were becoming more and more unrestrained. You! Nonsense! Grandfather won't die! Cough, cough! The little boy painfully raised his head and loudly retorted. Just as he said this, he started to cough violently again. Chee! The servant sneered. He was too lazy to pay attention to this so-called young master. After the little boy walked up the steps with great difficulty and entered the courtyard, the two servants began to discuss again. Say, if he really isn't the young master, why would the master of the Rain clan spend so much effort to kill him? Whether he is the real young master or not, no one can be sure. To the Lord of the Rain clan, regardless of whether it was true or not, he would kill him first. Even if I killed the wrong person, so what? That's true. While the servants were discussing, the little boy had already returned to the courtyard. Child. An old man with a face full of death was lying on the bed. He was on the verge of death. The old man's eyes were filled with tears as he looked at the 2 to 3-year-old boy who was limping in. Child, don't blame your great-grandfather. Grandpa 15's descendant was a natural-born supreme being. He shouldn't have died like this. Great-grandfather knows this is unfair to you. The old man trembled as he held the little boy's hand, tears rolling down his cheeks. Child, I'm going to die. After I die, you also. The old man paused for a moment and remained silent, as if he couldn't bear to tell the cruel truth to this young child. Grandfather, don't die. Tears rolled down from the little boy's eyes. He held the old man's hand tightly, as if he was trying his best to save the old man's life. Poor child. The old man reached out his other hand, wanting to caress the little boy's face. His hand reached out halfway, but it suddenly fell down, unable to move. The old man who was on his last breath had already breathed his last. Great-grandfather, even though the little boy was young, he knew that his grandfather had already left forever. The old man is dead? Hearing the little boy's cries, the two servants looked at each other, and a smile appeared on their faces. Since the old man is already dead, then, one of the servants reached out his hand and made a chopping motion. Don't! The other servant hurriedly stopped him. Even if the Lord of the Rain clan gave us orders, we still can't do it openly. The wasteland is very dangerous. It's normal for a child to have some accidents happen. Makes sense. Makes sense. The other servant raised his thumb and nodded in agreement. Poor little guy. Li Yu's figure flashed and appeared in the courtyard, appearing in front of the little boy. Who are you? A figure suddenly appeared in front of him. The little boy who was immersed in pain raised his head vigilantly, looking at Li Yu with a face full of vigilance. In the wasteland, facing countless dangers, it was difficult for the human race to survive. Children matured relatively early. Children of 11 or 12 years old could get married and have children. Even though this little boy was only 2 or 3 years old, his wisdom was equivalent to a 5 or 6-year-old child. I am Grand Supreme. Li Yu nodded at the little boy, then looked at the old man who had passed away on the bed and sighed. He's so young, yet he's already suffered so much. Truly pitiful. Li Yu's sigh was indeed sincere. A 2 or 3-year-old child was simply a treasure in the palm of his hand in the world he came from. How could he be allowed to suffer any grievances? Now, this little guy had suffered all kinds of torture, and even his legs were crippled. He was truly too pitiful. Pitiful little guy. Li Yu looked at the little guy with pity. He waved his hand, and a bit of spiritual light rushed out from his fingertip, entering the little guy's body. This was a drop of creation divine spring from the undying mountain. The water of the divine spring could revive the dead and regrow flesh and bones. This bit of spiritual light entered the little boy's body, and endless vitality bloomed, washing and nourishing the little boy's entire body. The little boy's entire body trembled, and his entire body bloomed with a brilliant light. It was as if a handful of dry wood had been added to a bonfire that was about to go out, and it burned fiercely. If Li Yu had not isolated this room, this light would have definitely alarmed many people. A moment later, the light disappeared. "I'm already fine?" The little boy was shocked to find that all the injuries on his body had recovered. Even his crippled leg had returned to normal. "Are you the cultivator that great-grandfather mentioned?" The little boy looked at Li Yu in shock and hurriedly thanked Li Yu. "Thank you for saving me, master. I am a cultivator." Li Yu nodded. "Child, are you willing to cultivate with me?" Li Yu really couldn't bear to play any tricks on a 2- or 3-year-old child, nor could he bear to play any fortuitous encounters. "Can I?" The little boy was pleasantly surprised. He hurriedly knelt in front of Li Yu. "Master, please accept me as your disciple." "Get up." Li Yu reached out to help the little boy up. "Since you have already become a disciple of the Supreme Palace, then you are the current successor of the Supreme Palace. Child, you will definitely become the supreme being of the world." Chapter 550. "Child, what is your name?" Li Yu looked at the little boy with a smile and asked softly. "My name is Shihao, but I know that I am not the real Shihao." The little boy looked up at Li Yu. "I don't have a name that belongs to me. Grandfather said that we have to repay a debt of gratitude and save a little brother." "Then, do you hate that little brother? That is the real Shihao?" After Li Yu said this, even he felt that it was a little inappropriate. Sure enough, the little boy's answer made Li Yu feel embarrassed. "Why would I hate him?" The little boy's face was pure, without the slightest bit of change. Instead, he was very puzzled by Li Yu's question. "All right, this is just a 2- or 3-year-old child." Li Yu suddenly felt a headache. The system's host was a 2- or 3-year-old child. How was he going to play this game? I have to let his mind mature. A 2- or 3-year-old child, no matter how mature his mind is, can't play any trick. Thinking of this, Li Yu had an idea. "Child, you're tired. Close your eyes and sleep." With a slight sweep of his soul power, the little boy instantly fell into a deep sleep. Reaching out to help the little boy up, Li Yu placed him on the bed. Looking at the dead old man on the bed, Li Yu sighed. "Old man, I will take care of your little grandson. You can rest in peace." With a wave of his hand, black and yellow energy swept out, and the ground of the room split open into a bottomless pit. After placing the dead old man into the 100-zhang deep pit, with a wave of his hand, the ground closed, burying the old man underground. Now, I have to deal with the little boy's mental problem. After burying the old man, Li Yu turned to look at the little boy. With a wave of his hand formed a few mysterious and unfathomable hand seals. 6 hand seals were formed, and 6 black holes appeared. Using the 6 Tao reincarnation heavenly technique to construct reincarnation, in addition to Lu Mo's Dream Tao reincarnation technique, let this little boy grow in enlightenment in reincarnation. Reaching out with his hand, Li Yu pulled out the little boy's sleeping soul. We still need to add some protection. We can't let his soul dissipate in the cycle of reincarnation. A dot of light appeared at the tip of his finger, enveloped the little boy's soul and threw it into the black hole manifested by the 6 paths reincarnation. An instant was an eternity, and a snap of a finger was 10,000 years. In Li Yu's fictional 6 paths of reincarnation, the little boy's soul was constantly reincarnated. However, every reincarnation did not erase his original memories. 100 generations of accumulation, 10,000 years of precipitation. In order to save effort, Li Yu did not include the cultivation world in the fictional reincarnation cycle, only the ordinary mortal world. However, even after being reincarnated 100 times in the mortal world and settling down for 10,000 years, the little boy's accumulation was already very deep. Birth, old age, sickness, and death. 10,000 years of experience, 100 reincarnations, the growth of the mind and the understanding of reincarnation were already very deep. Reincarnate 100 times, the soul returns to the body. Reaching out, the little boy's soul flew out of the 6 paths of reincarnation and returned to the young body. Hugh, the little boy released a long breath, slowly opening his eyes. A type of endless vicissitudes that did not match his age appeared in the little boy's pure eyes. Who are you? Liu looked at the little boy, his eyes calm like water, indifferently asking. This question was extremely important. This was related to whether the little boy comprehended his true self, whether he found himself, whether he was lost in the 100 reincarnations. Who am I? The little boy stood up, raising his eyes and looking around the room, a bit of reminiscence appearing in his eyes. Grandfather has already been buried by Master? I remember that before I fell asleep, Grandfather had just passed away. The little boy released a sigh, raising his head to look at Liu. What a great dream! I have had many names, but the one I remember the most clearly is only one name. However, that name Sure How, I do not wish to use it anymore. Then what is your name now? Liu saw that the little boy did not lose himself in the reincarnation cycle, nodding in satisfaction. My name is Xiaohao. The little boy stood up, raising his head and saying a name. Xiaohao? This name made Liu somewhat shocked. The name, Xiaohao, also had a great background. Alright, Xiaohao. This name is not bad. Liu nodded, acknowledging the name, Xiaohao. Thus, this fellow who should have been called Shi Qingfeng was messed up by Liu, becoming Xiaohao. Master, what I experienced, was it all a dream? Xiaohao's eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of life. Correct me. Liu waved his hand at the little boy. First of all, you cannot call me Master, you can only call me Ancestral Master. Because my seniority is too high. Liu impersonated the identity of Supreme Hall's Ancestral Master, so he could not directly take Xiaohao as a disciple. Xiaohao greets Ancestral Master. Xiaohao stood up and bowed in front of Liu. After 100 reincarnations, Xiaohao already understood that this Ancestral Master was not as simple as an ordinary cultivator. Get up. Liu helped Xiaohao up and continued. You asked me just now whether what you experienced was a dream. In fact, what is real? What is fake? What is reality? What is a dream? Everything depends on you. Ancestral Master means that everything in the world is real and illusory. Everything depends on what I know. If I think it's real, it's real. Xiaohao nodded. These are all my experiences. If I think it's real, it's real. It's just that. At this point, Xiaohao raised his head and looked at Liu. Ancestral Master made me reincarnate 100 times. I'm afraid there's a reason. Of course. Liu smiled and nodded. Our sect is called Supreme Hall. Every generation's successor is the Supreme Hall of the present age. You are the current successor of our sect. Naturally, you have to forge the qualifications of a Supreme Hall. Liu pointed at Xiaohao's forehead. This is our sect's inheritance, the heavenly 6 paths of reincarnation technique. If you want to cultivate the heavenly 6 paths of reincarnation technique, you naturally have to comprehend reincarnation. Otherwise, how can you control the power of reincarnation? The heavenly 6 paths of reincarnation technique. All things in the world, all living beings, are in the cycle of reincarnation. So that's how it is. After receiving the heavenly 6 paths of reincarnation technique from Liu, Xiaohao came to a realization. He stood up and bowed to Liu. Thank you for your guidance, Ancestral Master. The flowers in front of the courtyard bloomed and withered, the clouds in the horizon moved, and the myriad states of the world rose and fell in the cycle of reincarnation. After 100 reincarnations, Xiaohao already had a deep understanding of this. Of course, if not for Liu's protection, Xiaohao's little bit of soul power would have dissipated in the cycle of reincarnation long ago. This is our Supreme Hall's inheritance token. It has endless mysterious abilities. It will guide you on the path to becoming a Supreme Hall. Drip a drop of blood on it. A palm-sized bronze tablet appeared in Li Yu's hand. The words Supreme Hall were engraved on the surface of the tablet. It looked ordinary, but it was actually a new system. Thank you, Ancestral Master, for bestowing this treasure. Xiaohao took the bronze plate and bit his finger, dripping a drop of blood on it. Buzz, the bronze plate exploded with endless radiance and instantly merged into Xiaohao's body. Boom! Xiaohao's mind shook fiercely. A giant turtle carrying a huge palace appeared in his mind. Xiaohao was shocked to see the scene in his mind. That is the imprint of the Supreme Hall. When your cultivation is successful, you can go to the real Supreme Hall to pay your respects to the Ancestral Master and formally enter the sect. Li Yu smiled and waved his hand, shooting out a light into Xiaohao's mind. This is the Taotai Paragon art, the innate paragon art of pure-blooded true spirit. In our lineage, everything depends on one's own effort. Heavenly arts and paragon arts can be considered the starting point for you. From now on, everything will depend on you. Xiaohao understands. Xiaohao bowed to Li Yu. Xiaohao will not disappoint Ancestral Master's expectations. I will definitely become the Supreme Hall of this era. Chapter 551. Supremes aren't that simple. Li Yu glanced at Xiaohao, giving him more pressure. Our lineage is about being invincible within the same realm. The successor of the Supreme Palace is invincible from the start. Heroes bow their heads, and only I am supreme. Yes. Xiaohao puffed out his chest, in high spirits. Don't worry, Ancestral Master. Xiaohao's name will shock the world. Very good. Li Yu nodded in satisfaction. I look forward to seeing you reach the peak and spread the name of the Supreme Palace. I've already given you what you deserve. You'll have to rely on yourself in the future. Li Yu waved his hand at Xiaohao. I'm leaving. With a sway of his body, Li Yu's figure instantly disappeared. This experience is like a dream. Just a moment ago, he was a weak little boy who had been bullied. In just a moment, he had experienced 100 reincarnations, become the successor of the Supreme Palace, and obtained the 6 paths of reincarnation technique and the Taotai treasured art. It was simply unimaginable, like a dream. The servants of the manor were so disrespectful to me, so bullying. I was bitten by the venomous flood dragon and almost died. I'm afraid all of this has to do with that name. Xiaohao sighed. I don't know if that little big brother I've never met is still alive. We're all unfortunate people. Xiaohao turned his head to look at the door, and a cold light appeared in his eyes. As a servant of the Stone Tribe, you actually colluded with other tribes to harm me. You really don't know what's good for you. Clenching his fists, Xiaohao snorted coldly. In the past, I couldn't resist, but now... Withdrawing his gaze, Xiaohao put his thoughts on the 6 paths of reincarnation technique and the Taotai treasured art that Li Yu had taught him. The 6 paths of reincarnation technique. Apart from controlling the power of reincarnation and possessing boundless divine might, it's also a peerless technique that can control treasured arts. Seeing the introduction of the technique, Xiaohao already understood how profound the inheritance he had received was. The treasured arts of pure-blooded true spirits were the innate abilities of pure-blooded true spirits. They were extremely powerful. However, there was a problem here. After all, the innate talent of a pure-blooded true spirit came from the pure-blooded true spirit itself. Humans who cultivated these paragon techniques could also unleash tyrannical power. However, the human body was different from the body of a pure-blooded true spirit after all. Innate precious techniques were not the human race's own divine abilities, so they could not display these precious techniques to the extreme. After cultivating the heavenly art of the 6 paths of reincarnation, he was able to unleash the full potential of these pure-blooded creatures and even the 10 ferocious primordial beasts. Moreover, he could merge many different types of precious techniques into one, and unleash a divine ability that was formed from the fusion of several precious techniques. The power was incomparably tyrannical, and it was unrivaled in the world. As expected of the Supreme Hall, as expected of the Invincible. He was able to display his precious technique to the extreme, and he was also able to fuse many precious techniques that had been displayed to the extreme and explode with a single strike. This kind of power was simply unstoppable. Xiao Hao was overjoyed that he had obtained the inheritance of the Supreme Palace. The Taotai treasured technique is actually swallow the heavens and devour the earth? Devouring all things in order to strengthen oneself. He's simply too strong. Xiao Hao also understood why the ancestral master had passed down the Taotai Paragon technique to him. With this Paragon technique, he could devour all things in order to strengthen himself. His cultivation and strength would definitely grow rapidly. Xiao Hao will not disappoint the ancestral master's expectations after his painstaking efforts. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Xiao Hao circulated the Taotai Paragon technique. Runes began to revolve around his body, and a powerful suction force was generated. Absorb. Opening his mouth, it was as if a whirlpool had been created. The spiritual qi in the world swarmed over and poured into Xiao Hao's body. So strong. With this enormous amount of spiritual qi pouring into his body, Xiao Hao felt as if his body was about to explode. 6 paths of reincarnation, refine. Stopping the Taotai Paragon technique, Xiao Hao formed 6 hand seals in succession. It was as if 6 enormous black holes had opened up in his body, constantly refining the abundant spiritual qi in his body. In just a moment, all the spiritual qi in his body had been refined. Every bit of his flesh and blood was nourished by the spiritual qi. It was as if a dried-up land had received rain, and it was filled with vitality. It really is a peerless technique. Feeling the changes in his body, Xiao Hao was overjoyed. He continued to cultivate. The Taotai Paragon technique devoured spiritual qi, while the 6 paths of reincarnation refined spiritual qi. He cultivated in this manner in succession. Unknowingly, a night had passed. Come out. Hurry up and come out. Not long after Xiao Hao finished cultivating, a loud roar came from outside the door. Then, the door was kicked open with a bang. The old fellow is already dead. Hurry up and bury him. Don't leave him here. Where's the old fellow's corpse? The middle-aged servant rushed in and shouted at Xiao Hao. Then, he suddenly discovered that the old fellow's corpse was not in the room. What's going on? Wasn't the old fellow dead? How? The servant was shocked. He suddenly thought of a possibility. Could it be that the old fellow isn't dead? Did he purposely lead me in to deal with me? The servant turned pale with fright. Even if the old fellow was about to die, he was still a member of the Stone Kingdom's imperial family. He also possessed an extraordinary cultivation. The servant was not worried about the old fellow who was paralyzed on the bed. However, if he was sent to the old fellow's side, then he would be in big trouble. Even if the servant had practiced a bit of an incomplete paragon technique, he still had the cultivation of the blood transformation realm. Compared to the old fellow, he was far from enough. Run. The servant made a prompt decision and turned to run. However, the old man he was expecting didn't appear. Instead, a little guy he didn't expect made a move. Shio! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. A young figure shot out like an arrow and blocked the servant's path. You? The servant saw Xiao Hao blocking in front of him and was somewhat surprised. Then, he sneered, the old fellow must be unable to move. He let this little brat block me to stall for time. Humph, what's the use of this crippled little brat? The servant sneered disdainfully. He waved his hand and wanted to send Xiao Hao flying. In the servant's eyes, Xiaohao, who was lame and half dead, could be easily dealt with. He was simply unable to stop his footstep. What's going on? The servant slapped out, but he found that Xiaohao's figure flashed and dodged the slap. Then, he instantly rushed in front of him and waved his hand. He's not lame? The servant found that Xiaohao did not show any signs of being lame. His body was very agile and fast. He suddenly remembered that Xiaohao had rushed out of the room and blocked the door. His figure was as fast as lightning. Damn it! The servant's face changed and sweat appeared on his forehead. In his eyes, with Xiaohao blocking, the old fellow who was hiding would definitely sneak attack from behind. The servant casually slapped at Xiaohao and turned his attention to the incoming violent attack behind him. Then, the attack he was waiting for did not come from behind. Instead, it came from the little boy in front of him that he had been ignoring. Devour the heavens and earth. Xiaohao's hands fiercely pushed out. Runes flashed and a pitch-black and deep black hole appeared between Xiaohao's hands and enveloped the servant's body. The servant let out a horrified scream. He only felt that the blood in his body was rapidly being devoured by this huge black hole. In a moment, the servant's body turned into a pile of ashes that scattered everywhere. The blood in his body, his life force, everything was completely devoured by the Taotai treasured technique. Even his clothes were turned into ashes. The Taotai treasured technique is too strong. After devouring the servant's blood, Xiaohao's body turned red, and he felt like he was about to explode. 6 Paths of Reincarnation, Refine. Xiaohao quickly used the 6 paths of reincarnation to refine the blood in his body. In a moment, the servant's blood of the blood movement realm was completely refined and merged into Xiaohao's body. Rumble! The blood was like a tide that swept through his body. As the runes flowed, Xiaohao's body emitted a bright light. He had officially stepped into the blood movement realm. Chapter 552. Xiaohao's path of cultivation has already begun. Within the Supreme Palace, Li Yu heard the system's notification and nodded. Then, he looked towards the desolate mountains. Those 4 fellows are still searching in the desolate mountains. 4 pure-blooded true spirits at the Exalt realm have frightened all sorts of ferocious beasts in the desolate mountains. Chaos has already begun. According to the original development, when the white bone case appeared, the 4 fellows would fight until the mountains collapsed and the earth split. Especially the heaven-swallowing sparrow and Cheong-Chi's rampage, destroying hundreds of thousands of miles of desolate land. The willow deity who had not recovered its strength could only bring Stone Village out of the desolate mountains. Now, it's naturally different. Li Yu smiled and turned his head to look in the direction of Stone Village. The devilish brat is causing trouble again? The young Huang Tian Emperor had his supreme being bone dug out. Although he was already 3 years old, he only looked like he was 2 years old. However, the devilish brat was really causing trouble. Dig out that bird's nest. I'm going to dig out that bird's nest. The little guy was chasing a 5-colored sparrow in the village while gasping for breath. After chasing for a long time, he still could not catch up. He angrily stomped his feet and pointed at the 5-colored sparrow's nest on a big tree in the village, while angrily roaring with his childish voice. Ha 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 ha! Little guy, you didn't catch up again. When the villagers saw this scene, they all pointed at the little guy and laughed loudly. They did not see the problem and felt that it was normal for a 2 to 3-year-old to not be able to catch the 5-colored sparrow. However, although the little guy was young, his blood was extremely vigorous and his strength was not inferior to a 10-year-old child's. He chased for a long time and still could not catch up to the 5-colored sparrow. This 5-colored sparrow was naturally not an ordinary sparrow. We won't dig out the house sparrow's nest. Come, we'll take you to dig out a big bird's nest. The one who spoke was a tall and strong youth. The youth's name was Shi Dezhuang, and he was 12 years old this year. He was the oldest child in Stone Village, and also the strongest. Naturally, he became the head child of Stone Village. The bird's nest outside? Is it even bigger than this? The little guy blinked his eyes and immediately became interested. Right. A very big bird's nest. At this time, a very clever 7 or 8-year-old boy who looked like a monkey chuckled. He seemed to be very interested in the bird's nest. But Grandpa Patriarch said that it's very dangerous outside and doesn't allow us to go out. Although the little guy was a bit moved when he thought of his grandfather chief's words, he felt that running out like this was a bit disobedient. What are you afraid of? Shi Dezhuang patted his chest loudly. After practicing the new cultivation technique, my strength is now at 2000 Jin. It's not like we're going to fight a dire beast. There's no need to be afraid. Then, alright. For children, the more adults forbade them from doing something, the more curious they were. When a few brats gathered together, they could even flip the sky upside down. While the adults were out hunting and no one was paying attention to them, the group of brats slipped out of the village and went deep into the wilderness. Aolo roared deep within the desolate wasteland. A thunderous roar came from the depths of the mountain range. The huge tremor caused the surroundings to rumble. Rocks tumbled down and the trees swayed. The beast's roar was like thunder, and its ferocious aura made one's scalp go numb. Monkey, how much further? Hearing this beast's roar, the group of children's faces paled. Even Shi Dezhuang's heart was beating like a drum. At this moment, they were already very far away from Stone Village. The mountains in the desolate wasteland were incomparably dangerous. Even adults had to be careful, let alone these children. Not far. The monkey's name was Shi Zhongho. Although he wasn't very tall, he had a lot of strength and was also very clever. Uncle Hu and the others said that the cliff is right here. The stone monkey scuttled up a large tree and looked around. Afterwards, he happily said to everyone, "It's right in front." After passing through a primitive forest, a precipitous cliff towered in front of them. In the middle of this cliff, a huge bird's nest was located on top of a huge tree that grew out of the cliff. Looking from afar, within that huge bird's nest, one could see 3 huge eggs emitting a bit of fluorescent light. That's the green-scaled eagle's nest. The stone monkey pointed at the nest on top of the cliff and winked at everyone. At this time, the green-scaled eagle has already gone out to hunt. If we want to dig out the nest, we have to hurry. Shi Dezhuang brought a group of children and rushed all the way. Very quickly, they arrived at the bottom of the cliff. So many beast bones? At the bottom of the cliff, there was a pile of huge white bones. Among them, there were even some huge beast bones with traces of blood. These huge bones, every one of them was taller than an adult. It could be seen that the owner of these bones was definitely a huge beast. What was even more shocking was that on those huge beast bones, there were terrifying claw marks that deeply penetrated into the bones, making people's hair stand on end. These are the bones of a dragon-horned elephant. The stone monkey looked at these huge bones and sucked in a breath of cold air. Too scary. The green-scaled eagle actually ate the dragon-horned elephant. Another child cried out in shock. Hurry up and dig out the nest. If the green-scaled eagle comes back, we're dead for sure. Shi Dezhuang waved his hand and called for everyone to move quickly. Monkey, you take a few of the younger ones and carefully watch the surroundings to prevent that green-scaled eagle from coming back. I want to go up. The little guy came out. He didn't want to be a lookout. You're so small. Shi Dezhuang felt that the little guy was too small, and going up wasn't too appropriate. My strength isn't any less than yours. The little guy raised his arm, and his figure jumped up the cliff with a tsing-tsing-tsing sound. In a moment, he climbed up very high. Let's go. The little guy already went up, and Shi Dezhuang had no other choice. He hurriedly took a few children and climbed up the cliff. Huge mountain vines hung down from the cliff, becoming a natural rope for these children. These children of Stone Village all cultivatedly use worldly immortal martial path. Their strength greatly increased, and they climbed along the mountain vines at lightning speed. We're here. From the mountain vines to the bird nest, this huge bird nest had a radius of 10 zhang, and was even bigger than the houses of Stone Village. Inside the bird nest, there were piles of countless huge corpses with flesh and blood. In the middle of the bird nest, there were 3 huge bird eggs arranged in a triangular shape. Speckles of fluorescent light circulated on the eggshell, mysterious and unfathomable. Tonight there's egg soup to eat. The little guy licked his lips, and his mouth was already drooling. Don't you like to drink milk? You even like to eat eggs? A child laughed and teased the little guy. I stopped drinking milk a long time ago, I only drink it like water. The little guy retorted. Stop messing around, take the eggs and quickly leave. Shi Dazhuang took out a few beast skin bags, and put the 3 bird eggs into them. The few of them each carried a bag and hurriedly ran down the cliff. Did you get anything? A few children who were on guard saw the few of them come down, and quickly surrounded them. Got it! Haha! This is the biggest bird nest I've ever looted. Go! Take advantage of the fact that the green-scaled eagle hasn't come back yet, let's quickly return. The group of children carried the bags, and ran towards the direction of the village. Screech, a huge eagle cry soared into the sky, and the sharp sound pierced their eardrums until they felt pain. The green-scaled eagle is back. Quickly run. The group of devilish children cried out strangely, and miserably ran towards the direction of Stone Village. Screech. An eagle that was 10 zhang long, and its entire body was covered in green scales. Its 2 wings were like heaven-splitting blades, and it whistled as it rushed towards the group of devilish children. Hong Long. The pair of blade-like wings smashed apart the huge trees in the forest, and like a meteor it smashed into the ground. Wood shavings swirled in the air, and gravel flew in all directions. Ah! The devilish children cried out loudly, and their faces paled as they miserably ran away. With a single dive, it destroyed more than half of the forest. For this group of children, the green-scaled eagle was too terrifying. Hee, Heavenly Emperor Huang, you look just like a troublemaking devilish child. When Liu saw this scene, he laughed loudly. There was actually someone who asked why he didn't save that old man. Why did he have to save normal people from old age and sickness? In the myriad of worlds, in the endless time and space, there were countless people dying of sickness and old age at every moment. Wouldn't the main character have to save people every day? Saving all living things was the Buddha's job, and Liu couldn't do it. Chapter 553. Quickly run. Run back to Stone Village and we'll be saved. Shi Dazhuang roared, bringing the group of brats as they madly ran through the mountain forest. Hong Long. Behind them, a huge tree collapsed, and crushed stones flew everywhere. The green-scaled eagle screeched, swooping down again and again. Its blade-like wings chopped apart countless trees in the forest. It's over. We can't escape. There was still some distance from here to Stone Village, but there was no forest on this path, only an open space. If they entered this open space, the green-scaled eagle would swoop down and tear this group of brats to shreds. Let's go hide in the cave. The little guy shouted towards the crowd and brought the group of devilish brats into a cave on the side of the cliff. Haha, we're saved. After everyone rushed into the cave, they breathed heavily, and their faces were filled with joy as they laughed. The brats who caused trouble after escaping would naturally be proud of themselves, as if they had won a great battle. Little guy, how did you know there was a cave here? Shi Dazhuang patted the little guy's shoulder. If it wasn't for you today, we would be finished. Last time I chased a little red sparrow, and chased it here. It was Uncle Hu who brought me back. The little guy embarrassedly rubbed his head. Luckily Sure Dazhuang was about to say something, when he suddenly heard a loud noise from the cave entrance. Turning around to look, at the entrance of the cave, a huge head, flickering with a metallic light, stretched out from the cave entrance. A pair of cold eyes stared unwaveringly at the brats in the cave. "Ah! It's coming in!" The brats screamed and hurriedly retreated. Hong Long! The green-scaled eagle's metallic beak fiercely pecked at the cave entrance. With a loud bang, crushed stones flew everywhere, and a part of the cave entrance collapsed. If this continued, the green-scaled eagle would quickly open up a large cave entrance, and none of the children in the cave would be able to escape. This green-scaled eagle is the descendant of the archaic devil bird green sky pung, so it's still worth training. Li Yu's figure noiselessly appeared at the entrance of the cave. Looking at the huge green-scaled eagle in front of him, he smiled and nodded his head. The green-scaled eagle and the hatchlings from the 3 eggs will all be members of Stone Village from now on. He could also help Celestial Emperor Huang. I will give you a stroke of good fortune. With a press of his hand, Li Yu caught the green-scaled eagle, and with a wave of his hand, stored it in the resource storage. With a flash, Li Yu left the cave and appeared on a distant mountain peak. System: scan the green-scaled eagle's azure sky pung bloodline information. With a sweep of the 5-colored light wave, the information of the azure sky pung bloodline in the green-scaled eagle's body was completely scanned. The so-called azure sky rock is actually an azure rock. The green pung and the golden pung are both descendants of the Kuan pung. The bloodline of the 10 ferocious primordial beasts is extraordinary. Just like the true dragon, the Kuan pung was one of the 10 primordial ferocious beasts. The power of the green rock was roughly at the level of the 9 sons of the dragon. Purify the green rock bloodline and reconstruct the green-scaled eagle's body. Since he wanted to nurture this green-scaled eagle into one of Celestial Emperor Huang's helpers, then he had to give it a stroke of good fortune. The 5-colored brilliance swept out, and the green-scaled eagle's body instantly collapsed, leaving behind only a drop of blood that was surrounded by a green light. Celestial Emperor Huang, in order to give you a complete set of subordinates, I have spent a lot of effort. Li Yu waved his hand, and a ball of divine spring water was extracted from the Undying Mountain's Fortune Divine Spring, and he poured it into the drop of green blood. Boom! The sky was filled with green light, and within the green light, a cold silver moon seemed to rise from the sea of green light. Within the silver moon, there was a giant tree that reached into the clouds. On top of the giant tree, a green pung stood at the top of the tree. The green peng's entire body was green, and each of its feathers seemed to be carved from jade. It emitted an endless gale, tearing the sky and shattering all things in the world. Screech, a long screech resounded, and the green light receded, and the strange phenomenon dissipated. Only a pung that was about 10 zhang long and covered in green feathers, as if it was carved from jade, was left in the resource warehouse. Not bad, it looks more like it. Li Yu waved his hand and released the green pung. Gulp, gulp. After the green pung was released, it prostrated in front of Li Yu, and its throat made a sound. The bird's head continuously kowtowed to the ground, as if it was kowtowing to Li Yu. No need to thank me, get up. Li Yu waved his hand. Although you have purified your bloodline and turned into a pure-blooded true spirit, your cultivation is still too weak. You can't even refine the hygid bone in your throat, and you can't even speak. You still need to work hard to cultivate. Gulp. The green pung turned its head to look in the direction of the devilish brats. It made a sound in its throat and then kowtowed to Li Yu. Don't worry about your children. Li Yu had already sensed the green peng's soul fluctuation and understood its meaning. They also have their own fortune. Gulp, gulp. The green pung lowered its head, and like a little chick pecking at rice, it kept kowtowing. All right. I will also restore their pure-blooded green pung bodies. Li Yu looked at the green pung and pointed at the distant stone village. However, you must protect that village from now on. including your children. You will all become members of the village. Gulp! The green pung agreed without hesitation. Since that's the case, I will pass on the green pung treasured technique to you. He waved his hand and a ball of light fell into the green peng's mind. The green pung was only a pure-blooded green pung created by Li Yu. It was not a true adult green pung, and it did not have the innate treasured technique inheritance of the green pung clan. The Supreme Palace had collected countless books, and there was also the green pung treasured technique. There are 3 drops of green pung true blood here. Li Yu threw out a jade bottle, and the green pung caught it in its beak. Go to Stone Village and pay your respects to Willow Deity, the guardian spirit of Stone Village. Say that you came on I's orders. The Willow Deity will take care of the following matters for you. Gulp! You're asking who I am? Hee I's supreme. Go. Li Yu smiled and waved his hand. Gulp! The green pung spread its wings, and an endless storm circulated between its wings. With a rumbling sound, the green pung broke through the sky like lightning, and flew towards Stone Village. Gulp! The green pung let out a long cry, and descended towards the village where a willow tree grew. What is that? A vicious bird is coming to attack. Seeing the arrival of the green pung, the faces of everyone in Stone Village changed. They all picked up their weapons and prepared for battle. The dark green willow branch flashed with endless green light, and swept towards the green pung in the sky. The dark green willow branch was like a soaring green dragon, and the leaves were like sharp swords that tore through the sky. The willow branch swept out, and the world-shaking momentum scared the green pung out of its wits. Gulp! Gulp! Seeing this momentum, the green pung immediately cried out, and expressed its intention to the Willow Deity. You're here on the orders of the Grand Empyrean? Come down. Hearing the green pung's cry, the Willow Deity understood its intention. The willow branch that swept towards the green pung stopped, and the overflowing momentum was retracted. The willow branch that was like a soaring green dragon withdrew. Gulp! The green pung, who had been scared out of its wits by the Willow Deity, obediently landed under the willow tree and explained the whole sequence of events with a gulu-gulu sound. The children of Stone Village dug out your nest? Even your eggs were dug out? The Willow Deity smiled and shook its head. That group of brats. The Grand Empyrean gave you a fortune, and ordered your family to join Stone Village, so you just have to stay here. When those brats return, I will naturally take your children over. A willow branch swept out, and the jade bottle in the green pung's beak was taken over by the Willow Deity. With its divine sense, the Willow Deity immediately understood the use of the jade bottle. You were originally a green-scaled eagle? The Grand Empyrean returned you to your origin, and turned you into a green pung? The Empyrean's ability to seize the fortune of heaven and earth is truly unfathomable. The Willow Deity secretly exclaimed. It was able to return the green-scaled eagle, a descendant of the green pung with a weak bloodline, to its origin, and turn it into a pure-blooded green pung. Even the Willow Deity couldn't help but admire this divine ability. Chapter 554. Little Guy, there doesn't seem to be any movement outside. Shi Dazhuang raised his head and looked at the cave entrance, then turned his head and said to the little guy, Could it be it already left? The little guy walked towards the cave entrance, wanting to see what was going on outside. Don't go. What if that green-scaled eagle is guarding the cave entrance? Shi Dazhuang quickly pulled the little guy. If you want to see, it's me. How can I let you take the risk? Brother Dazhuang, I'm small and nimble. Even if there's danger, I can run faster. Xiao Budian explained and pushed away Shi Dazhuang. He tiptoed to the entrance of the cave, stretched out his little head, and glanced outside the cave. Seems like it really isn't here. The little guy walked a few steps outside and looked around. There was no longer any trace of the green-scaled eagle. Could it be that the green-scaled eagle went into hiding? The little guy frowned and raised his vigilance. He was prepared to run back into the cave at any time, and then he shouted loudly. After this loud shout, the surroundings were still silent. It seems like the green-scaled eagle really left. The little guy quickly shouted towards everyone in the cave. The green-scaled eagle already left. Let's run! Run! Quick, run! The group of brats in the cave immediately rushed out, running towards the direction of Stone Village. They madly ran the entire way. The brats rushed through the open area outside the forest, and like a wisp of smoke, they rushed into Stone Village. Ho-ho! The brats gasped for breath, and after looking at each other, they all laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha! We ran back. Yeah. It was too dangerous just now. It was a bit dangerous, but it was so exciting. The devilish brats were laughing and playing around. They didn't notice that there was a green pung that was about 10 zhang long and covered in green feathers. It looked as if it was carved out of jade. Its green eyes were wide open as it stared fiercely at the group of devilish brats. Ha ha! The stone monkey laughed wildly, but halfway through, it suddenly saw a huge green pung standing behind everyone, and its laughter suddenly stopped. Behind! Behind! The stone monkey pointed at everyone's back and cried out in panic. What happened at the back? Everyone turned their heads in confusion. When they saw the majestic and huge azure pung standing behind them, they immediately screamed in fright. Could it be that the green-scaled eagle has caught up? Sure Dezhuang blocked the group of little fellows behind him. Run! Brother Dezhuang, don't be nervous. The little guy smiled and pushed away Sure Dezhuang's hand. This is Stone Village. With Willow Deity here, if it has any ill intentions, it definitely won't be able to enter. That's true. Sure Dezhuang scratched his head awkwardly and glanced at the green rock. Where did this big bird come from? Humph! You bunch of naughty brats, you actually went to dig up other people's nests. Now, they've come knocking on our door. The old patriarch leaned on a dragon-like wooden staff and glared fiercely at the group of brats. Still not taking out the eggs? It's the green-scaled eagle? It wasn't like this before. Hearing the old chief's words, the group of devilish brats were dumbstruck. Grand Empyrean bestowed good fortune and ordered them to join Stone Village. In the future, the Green Rocks family will be our Stone Village's people. Hurry up and take out the eggs. The old chief slammed his staff and was extremely angry at this group of daring brats. If not for the Grand Empyrean's protection, this group of brats would definitely have been torn apart by the Green Rock. If they continued to be so daring, sooner or later they would suffer a loss. They're our own people. He. Sure Dezhuang had a silly smile on his face and hurriedly took out his pouch and took out the 3 green-scaled eagle eggs. The 3 basin-sized jade-colored bird eggs emitted a bit of fluorescent light and contained a strong life force. Golo! The green rock saw the 3 bird eggs and gulped loudly. It was extremely happy. Dezhuang, you guys take these and send the bird eggs to Willow Deity. The old chief instructed and brought the naughty brats to Willow Deity's altar. Put the bird eggs on the altar. Oh, okay. The 3 children carefully placed the bird eggs on the enormous stone altar under the willow tree. Grandpa Chief, what does Willow Deity want these eggs for? The little guy looked at the 3 bird eggs on the altar and asked the old chief. The Green Rocks family has joined our village, so Willow Deity obviously wants them to hatch earlier. The old chief smiled and patted the little guy's head as he explained. A dark green willow branch drooped down and released endless multicolored light. Within the multicolored light, an ancient jade bottle slowly tipped over. 3 drops of dark green-colored blood condensed like jade. They flickered with a brilliant divine splendor and emitted an enormous aura. A huge whistling sound reverberated in the air, as if a violent hurricane was sweeping over. Ding-dong! The dark green-colored blood dripped down and separately fell onto the 3 bird eggs. It instantly seeped into the eggshell and merged into the bird eggs. Hong Long. An endless amount of green light erupted, rippling like a vast ocean. The 3 bird eggs produced a silver moon-like radiance, as if 3 bright moons were rising from the sea of green light. So powerful! When the devilish brats saw this scene, their horizons were broadened. They all widened their eyes and stared forward without blinking. Gulu. The green rock also stretched out its neck and nervously looked at the 3 bird eggs. Shwa. The willow branch swayed and 3 brilliant streaks of light rushed out from the jade bottle. Within the streaks of light, endless life force was revealed. Just smelling a bit of the aura made the old chief and the devilish brats feel refreshed and invigorated. 1. The 3 streaks of light brimming with life force separately entered the 3 bird eggs. Endless life force sprouted, and the 3 bird eggs erupted with brilliant radiance as they violently trembled. The mysterious phenomenon appeared. Among the 3 bright moons, there were 3 azure great rocks exuding a boundless strong wind. Kacha. The bird eggs cracked open, and 3 little birds that were about a foot long and covered in green fur appeared in front of everyone as if they were carved from jade. Wah! So cute! Seeing the 3 little birds, the devilish brats clapped their hands and laughed loudly. Gulu. The green rock excitedly cried out and stretched out its head to touch the 3 little birds. Gulu! 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 The 3 little birds made gulu sounds and intimately rubbed against the green rock's head. They are all pure-blooded green rocks, not bad. Take good care of them. In the future, they will be a great help to Stone Village. The willow deity's voice transmitted into everyone's ears. Right, the green rock also has a green rock precious technique. This is a pure-blooded true spirit treasure technique. In the great wastelands, if it isn't a great country's royal family or a peak holy land, there won't be such a precious technique inheritance. You can go and learn from the green rock. Pure-blooded true spirit treasure technique? There are true spirit treasure techniques? The old chief finally understood the green rock family's background. He had traveled outside before, so he naturally knew what kind of concept pure-blooded true spirits and true spirit treasure techniques were. Only the archaic divine mountains, a place that transcended the mortal world, would have pure-blooded true spirits. Powerful pure-blooded true spirits were all overlords of an area, equivalent to human emperors. The old chief was so excited that his entire face was red, and his hands and feet were trembling. With the willow deity's protection and 4 pure-blooded true spirits joining Stone Village, as well as a pure-blooded true spirit treasure technique, Stone Village would definitely restore the glory of its ancestors. Chapter 555. The Azure Sky Ping family joining Stone Village brought great benefit. The simplest point was that the people of Stone Village didn't need to go out to hunt anymore. Rumble! A huge dragon-horned elephant descended from the sky, causing the ground to rumble. Cut off the meat and dry it. Put the blood into the vat, quick! Everyone in Stone Village continuously processed the prey that the Azure Ping brought back. Everyone in the village was beaming with joy. Most of the food in the desolate mountain range came from hunting. However, the desolate mountain range's fierce beasts were ruthless. Every hunt was very dangerous. At this moment, the Azure Ping joined Stone Village. With the power of the Azure Ping's pure-blooded true spirit, hunting prey was simply too easy. The Azure Ping family joining our Stone Village is really great. The old chief leaned on his walking stick. Seeing the bustling scene in the village, he smiled and nodded. The desolate mountain range's fierce beasts are full of vitality. With enough meat, everyone can quickly increase their strength. The worldly immortal martial path cultivated the vitality to strengthen the body. With these fierce beasts as a supplement, the strength of the villagers increased even faster. With the Azure Ping hunting and having enough meat, the villagers had more time to cultivate. The cultivation conditions were also better. When the Azure Ping taught the 3 young Azure Ping, it didn't hide anything from everyone. The Azure Pung treasure technique also circulated in Stone Village. While Stone Village was immersed in the cultivation craze, Xiaohao also officially stepped on the road of rise in the second ancestral ground. Several servants in the manor who had been bribed by the Rain clan were planning to frame Xiaohao, but they were all swallowed up by the Taotai treasured technique. Buzz, after Xiaohao cleaned up the servants that colluded with the Rain clan, the Supreme Palace in Xiaohao's mind began to move. The path of the Supreme Palace is unparalleled in the world. In his mind, the door of the Supreme Palace slowly opened, revealing a vast and dignified world. Xiaohao's soul involuntarily flew into the door and entered the Supreme Palace. The Supreme Palace is indeed unfathomable. After his soul entered the Supreme Palace, a glittering stone tablet appeared in front of Xiaohao. A string of words appeared on the stone tablet, introducing the functions of the Supreme Hall to Xiaohao. Pill Hall, Weapon Refining Pavilion, Scripture Depository, Martial Arts Hall, Tao Enlightenment Hall, Ancestral Master Hall. The Supreme Hall has so many functions? Xiaohao couldn't help but be speechless when he read the introduction on the stone tablet. My identity as the successor of the Supreme Hall is probably really incredible. I've only unlocked the first seal, so there are still many functions that I can't use. Xiaohao calmed his excited heart, and his divine sense passed through the stone tablet, arriving at the only functional building that was currently open. Ancestral Hall. What exactly is the function of this place? In front of him was a simple and dignified hall. When Xiaohao arrived at the entrance of the hall, the door automatically opened. The Supreme Ancestor is actually the founder of the Supreme Palace. Walking into the hall, Xiaohao saw Li Yu's portrait hanging in the middle. Seeing that existence walking in the sky and looking down on the greater thousand realms, the pressure that came from his soul made Xiaohao tremble. Disciple Xiaohao pays his respects to the Supreme Ancestor and all the other ancestral masters. Xiaohao hurriedly bowed respectfully towards the portrait of the ancestral master in the hall. Buzz, after Xiaohao bowed, a ray of light suddenly shot out from the Supreme Ancestor's portrait, and a screen of light appeared in front of Xiaohao. The path of the Supreme Hall is invincible in the world. As the successor of the Supreme Hall, no matter what aspect, you must be the best in the world and be invincible in the world. To become an invincible Supreme, you must first have an invincible body. A majestic voice sounded from the screen of light. Disciple respectfully listens to the teachings of the ancestral master. Xiaohao could tell that it was Li Yu's voice, and he hurriedly bowed and listened to the teachings. However, the teachings that Xiaohao was waiting for did not come. Instead, a string of words appeared on the screen of light. So this is just the voice left behind by the Supreme Ancestor. Xiaohao realized that it wasn't the ancestral master who had come. It was just a message left behind by the ancestral master. Are the words on the screen of light the key? Xiaohao focused his attention on the words on the screen of light. Unprecedented, unparalleled sacred body? When Xiaohao saw the words on the screen of light, he suddenly took a deep breath. The words described how to forge a peerless body called the sacred body of the ancient. After the sacred body of the ancients was cultivated, one could move mountains and fill seas, destroy heaven and earth, and have endless magical powers. Furthermore, it could be indestructible and be reborn from a drop of blood. It was simply unimaginably powerful. A pure-blooded true spirit in the blood movement realm has a divine strength of 100,000 pounds. My sacred body in the blood movement realm has a mighty strength of 360,000 pounds, a body that was several times more powerful than a pure-blooded true spirit. How terrifying was this body! No wonder it was called the unprecedented, unparalleled sacred body. It's just that, to forge such a body, the materials required are very unusual. The words on the screen of light introduced that to cultivate the bloodline of the sacred body of the ancients, 3 pure-blooded true spirit bodies in the blood movement realm were required. This was only the bloodline of the sacred body. If he wanted to continue growing, he would need to consume even more materials. Of course, the prospects of this body were also very gratifying. Once the sacred body reached large success, it would truly possess the power of a supreme being. Its might would shake the world and it would be invincible. This was the sacred body. In the later generations, the world had changed greatly. The sacred body had become unsuitable for cultivation and was no longer glorious. However, under those circumstances, Yi Fan still rose up. Right now, in this desolate world, it was the time for the sacred body to shine brilliantly. The path of a supreme being is the path of invincibility. As the current successor of the Supreme Hall, I naturally cannot bring shame to the name of the Supreme Hall. Achieving the sacred body is the first step on the path of a supreme being. At this time, Xiaohao also understood the function of the ancestral hall, which was to forge an unparalleled sacred body. I only need the vitality of a pure-blooded true spirit at the blood movement realm. I don't necessarily need to hunt a pure-blooded true spirit. Xiaohao's soul left the supreme palace and returned to his body. He turned his head to look at the important town in the west of the Stone Country, Rushing Cloud City. His eyes shone with a cold light. The Rain clan who bribed the servants came from Rushing Cloud City. If you want to kill me, I'll kill you. It's just right to use you guys to forge a sacred body. Xiaohao took a deep breath. The cold light in his eyes gradually disappeared, and the expression on his face returned to normal. After 100 lives of reincarnation and 10,000 years of reincarnation, Xiaohao had long since refined a calm temperament. His killing intent was restrained, and his sharpness was not revealed. The Rain clan must have colluded with the servants in the manner. In less than 2 days, there will definitely be people from the Rain clan coming to contact the servant. Xiaohao clenched his fists. Thief! I will definitely kill all of you! Chapter 556. Rushing Cloud City. Inside an imposing and gorgeous mansion, Yu Meng, the commander of the Rain clan stationed at the western border, was frowning as he paced back and forth in the mansion's garden. Is there any news about Shi Xiling and his wife? Yu Meng stood on a stone arch bridge in the garden and looked at a group of purple-scaled fish in the water. His eyes faintly flickered with the light of symbols. The desolate aura was bone-chilling, as if it was the coldest winter. The fish in the pond were frightened. With a "wah-la" sound, the purple-scaled fish hurriedly escaped. The fish could escape, but the people could not. Sir, please forgive me. A green-clothed manager's face paled as he hurriedly and respectfully reported, This lowly one has always been investigating, but there is no definite news. This lowly one will definitely investigate strictly and will not slack off. And Yu Meng expressionlessly nodded and waved his hand towards the manager. He turned around and walked down the stone bridge, leaving the mansion's garden. The manager's face paled. He knew that Yu Meng was already dissatisfied with his incompetence. The steward bowed towards Yu Meng's back, then excused himself and left. Not long after, the manager arrived at the front hall with an unhappy expression. He sat down in front of the hall and shouted towards the outside, Men, we pay our respects to the manager. A group of imposing figures quickly rushed over and paid their respects to the manager. These people's strength was not ordinary. They were all experts recruited by the manager. I told you to investigate Shi Xiling's news. It's been so long, yet there is no news at all. A group of trash. The manager angrily roared. His imposing manner was like that of an angry lion. I heard that the old monsters in that lousy manor are all dead. That child is actually still alive? The manager's face was gloomy as he swept his eyes over everyone. His ice-cold gaze made everyone shiver. Sir, that child is most likely a substitute. He is not that sure how. A subordinate gathered his courage and replied. Idiot! The manager angrily roared and slapped out. The ironwood table in front of him exploded with a loud bang, sending wood shavings everywhere. An enormous force rushed out. Even the diamond stone floor on the ground was shaken into pieces. A large crater appeared on the ground. We are the Rain clan, a noble family. We are ancient and glorious with a long history. Regardless of whether that little bastard is a substitute or not, his existence is a humiliation to the Rain clan. The steward turned his head to look at the crowd and snorted heavily. Do you know what to do now? Don't worry, sir. We'll definitely get things done. This group of subordinates had been scolded until their faces were covered in dirt. Naturally, they had to seize the opportunity to show their determination. Do it cleanly. Don't leave any flaws behind. Otherwise, humph. The steward snorted coldly and waved his hand at the crowd. You may leave. Clean it up immediately. Yes. The group of subordinates accepted the order and left. Stone Clan's second ancestral land. Xiao Hao sat on the side of a dirt road in the manor. He leaned against a huge fire mulberry tree and looked outside the manor with a smile. Over there, an old man was driving a beast carriage slowly into the manor. Grandpa Hai, are you here to deliver food again? Xiao Hao stood up and greeted the old man driving the carriage. Young master, why are you sitting here? The old man driving the carriage glanced at Xiao Hao and nodded. The ground is cold. You're not in good health. Be careful. And I know. Thank you, Grandpa Hai. Xiao Hao smiled and waved at the old man. This old man was here to deliver fruits, vegetables, and pray to the manor. In these few years, apart from the deceased great-grandfather, this old man was the only person in the entire manor who cared about Xiao Hao. Sigh, poor child. The beast carriage drove away. A sigh came from afar. Night gradually fell. In the pitch-black night sky, one ferocious beast roar after another faintly came over. At night in the vast wilderness, hearing beast roars was a very normal thing. But tonight's beast roars were somewhat different. Roar, huge beast roars sounded out continuously. Furthermore, they were getting closer and closer. Faintly, one could even hear the heavy footsteps of fierce beasts running over. Indeed came. Under the fire mulberry tree, Xiao Hao opened his eyes. A light flashed and disappeared, as if a bolt of lightning exploded in the pitch-black night sky. Roar! Roar! Rumble! The ferocious beasts roared. Several huge fierce beasts seemed to have gone mad, charging at the manor. They were savage and ruthless to the extreme. Fierce beasts attacking the village. Run! In the second ancestral land, other than the Sure tribe's manor, there were also some farmers who farmed to support this manor. At this moment, when they heard the beast roars and saw the commotion, the farmers screamed in panic and ran away pathetically. These bastards! How dare they lay their hands on a child? They deserve to die. Old Man Hai, who had greeted Xiao Hao during the day, stood up angrily. Humph! Allowing the beasts to attack the village. How vicious! I have no choice but to kill them all. Old Man Hai turned around and grabbed a big bow from the backyard. He hung a quiver of arrows on it and walked out of the house. Stepping out of the house, Old Man Hai raised his longbow and was about to shoot an arrow. The scene in front of him made Old Man Hai's body tremble. He was so shocked that his jaw dropped. Young master! He under Old Man Hai's shocked gaze, that pitiful child, who was on the verge of death and only had half a life left, was glowing brilliantly. His chi and blood were surging like tides. How dare you trespass on the Sure tribe's land? Give me your life! The small figure was like a wild horse that had escaped from its reins. He crashed into a huge armored bull in front of him. Regardless of size or weight, the two were completely disproportionate. However, boom! Amidst the fierce collision, The iron-armored bull that was 15 meters long and possessed a powerful momentum was actually directly sent flying by this young figure. Die! The small hand waved and slapped the armored bull's head, which was as hard as iron. Crack! The armored bull's incomparably hard skull was actually smashed into pieces by this small hand. While the small boy was attacking the armored bull, a huge direwolf, which was about 10 feet tall, roared and bared its fangs. It bit down on the small boy. Old Man High was shocked. He quickly raised his bow and arrow, wanting to save the little boy who was caught off guard. However, how dare you attack me? You must be tired of living. The little boy remained calm in the face of this change. He turned around and slapped again without a care in the world. Bang! With a loud sound, the huge direwolf was slapped on the head. Immediately, blood splattered and its head was smashed. The splattering blood dyed the little boy's clothes red. It also dyed the path he was taking. The path to becoming a supreme being could only be dyed red with blood. There's still one more. I can't let it go. The little boy leaped up and shot out like an arrow towards a ferocious ape at the side. Die! The little boy roared. He leaped up and slapped the huge ferocious ape. The ferocious ape's head was crushed. Blood splattered and the smell of blood filled the air. However, the small boy stood among the bloody corpses with his head held high and his chest puffed out. He was in high spirit. Incredible! You are indeed a descendant of the Stone Kingdom's royal family. At such a young age, you already have the aura of a hero. Old Man High smiled with relief. So, young master has also cultivated the precious skill. At this moment, Old Man High also noticed the runes on the little boy's palm that had yet to dissipate. Xiao Hao was using the Tao Tai precious skill. Other than the Swallow the Heavens and Devour the Earth ability, the Tao Tai, as the son of the dragon, also had powerful close combat abilities. Little brat, you have hidden your strength so well? In the forest outside the manor, a group of black-clothed and masked figures rushed out of the forest. He is only in the blood movement realm. How powerful can a little brat be? Kill him! The person at the front roared. He led a group of black-clothed men and charged towards Xiao Hao. Chapter 557. Damn it! How dare you attack the Stone Tribe's ancestral land so brazenly? Old Man High was enraged when he saw the situation. He raised the longbow in his hand and pulled the bowstring. Grandpa High, you can just watch over me. You don't have to do anything. Xiao Hao smiled at Old Man High. His pure little face actually showed a heroic spirit that looked down on the world. All right, I will stay here and watch you show off your prowess. Old Man High laughed heartily as he looked at the little boy. His eyes shone brightly as he said, "A 3-year-old child has such spirit. The Stone Tribe is indeed full of heroes." The Stone Tribe was a family full of heroes. Back then, the ancestor of the Stone Tribe stepped out of the wilderness alone. He fought for a vast land with his bare hands and created a vast ancient country that had been passed down for generations. Today, the Stone Tribe still had countless disciples guarding the borders and fighting against the other tribes in the wilderness to protect this vast country. You bandits dare to invade the Stone Tribe's ancestral land. You deserve death. Xiao Hao, who was covered in blood, stepped on the huge corpse of a ferocious beast. He pointed at the group of men in black who had rushed into the village and shouted angrily, "You are just a little brat. How dare you speak so arrogantly? I will chop you into pieces." A man in black who was holding a giant axe took the lead. He raised the giant axe and chopped it down on the little boy's head. When the axe was chopped down, there was a shrill sound that sounded like the wailing of ghosts. There was a terrifying skull on the back of the giant axe. When the axe was swung, the hole in the skull exploded with rune light. There was a shrill sound that shook one's divine soul. The shrill sound of the giant axe cutting through the air was so ear-piercing that it made people feel numb and dizzy. This was the ultimate skill of the man in black, the frightening god axe. With this strange shrill sound, the man made a name for himself. The frightening god axe shook one's divine soul. Countless people had died under this skill. Even an adult with a strong divine soul could not withstand this attack, let alone a 2-year-old child. The man was confident that he could kill Xiao Hao in one blow. Evil tricks. After being reincarnated 100 times, Xiao Hao's soul was extremely tough. How could it be shaken by this sharp howl? Xiao Hao snorted coldly. He formed a seal with his hand and blasted out a palm strike. Aolo, an indistinct image of a Taotai sword into the sky. A huge black hole appeared in Xiao Hao's palm, and a power that could devour heaven and earth, and everything rushed out from Xiao Hao's palm. The Taotia's ability to swallow the heavens and devour the earth, the innate precious technique of a pure-blooded true spirit, its might was world-shaking. How could these small fries resist it? The Taotai phantom rushed over, and the black-clothed man in front of him let out a blood-curdling scream. The man and his weapon were swallowed by the Taotai in one gulp, leaving only some residue that turned into ashes. What is this demonic technique? Xiao Hao killing the black-clothed man in one strike shocked the other black-clothed men. It's actually the Taotai treasured technique? Wasn't the Swan and I treasured technique and the Swan and I treasured technique of the Stone Clan? Why is there still the Taotai treasured technique? Old Man Hai was also shocked by Xiao Hao's attack. Could it be the hidden inheritance in the second ancestral land of the Shi clan? Did the young master find it? No matter how powerful the precious technique is, how many times can he use it? Kill him. These black-clothed men were all fugitives. Since they had already killed their way into the Shi clan's ancestral land, they had already committed a capital crime. Unless they killed everyone here, they would die. Kill. Kill him. The group of black-clothed men roared and waved their weapons towards Xiao Hao. Close to 20 blood transformation realm cultivators. Although the quality is a bit lacking, the quantity is enough. After killing all of you, it should be enough for me to cultivate the saint bloodline. Xiao Hao's eyes were cold. Runes appeared one after another and covered his entire body. Aolo, a huge roar soared into the sky, shaking the surroundings. The Taotai phantom rushed out from Xiao Hao's head and covered his entire body. It revealed a dragon sun Taotai that was covered in black scales. Its claws were as sharp as swords, and its fangs were as dense as halberds. Thieves, all of you, die for me. The immature voice revealed an aura of disdain for the world. The small figure rushed out and faced the group of black-clothed men. It was like an army of 10,000 charging forward. Its monstrous aura was unstoppable. Pooh! A palm shot out, and the huge Taotai phantom also waved its claws at the same time. A black-clothed man at the front was sent flying like a mosquito. He spat out blood along the way. Roar! The immature voice let out a loud roar, and the Taotai phantom also roared at the same time. The wind whistled and the clouds surged. The mighty sound waves were like raging tides, and the black-clothed men at the front were shaken to the point of dizziness. Die! A palm shot out and a black-clothed man's chest caved in. He instantly fell to the ground and died. Kill! A black-clothed man roared. He raised a huge black iron shield and fiercely slammed it towards Xiao Hao. Break! Xiao Hao shouted and slapped down on the huge shield. With a hong sound, the huge shield shattered, and the black-clothed man swayed and fell down. The small figure moved unhindered. Every move was powerful and heavy. Every time he struck out, someone would definitely fall to the ground and die. No one was a match for him. These black-clothed men were only at the blood transformation realm, and the precious techniques they cultivated were only ordinary. Xiao Hao cultivated the 6 Tao reincarnation heavenly technique and the pure-blooded true spirit Taotai precious technique. The 6 Tao reincarnation heavenly technique was the Supreme Palace's peerless inheritance, and the Taotai precious technique was the pure-blooded true spirit's innate precious technique. They were both rare divine abilities for ordinary people. Under this kind of power, these small fries naturally couldn't withstand a single blow. Invading my Stone Clan's ancestral land, you all deserve to die. Xiao Hao roared. He swept through the enemies in front of him and killed in all directions. Kill, kill, kill. The young figure was bathed in blood. His immature face was resolute. He stepped on the corpses and fought while bathed in blood. He was invincible. Damn it! This brat is too strong. After a round of killing, more than half of the black-clothed men had fallen. A pile of corpses was stepped on by the child, and they died miserably. The remaining 4 or 5 black-clothed men were already terrified by Xiao Hao's killing. Run! More than 20 people besieged a child, but they were defeated in a short period of time. Only a few of them were left, and the remaining few were already terrified and had lost their will to fight. Do you think you can run? Xiao Hao jumped up and chased after the black-clothed men who were running in all directions. Grandpa Hai! While chasing, Xiao Hao shouted at Old Man Hai. Young master, don't worry. None of them will be able to escape. Old Man Hai laughed loudly and raised his longbow. As the runes shone, a sharp arrow pierced through the air. Ah! After the arrow was shot, a black-clothed man screamed and fell to the ground. Xiao! 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 The arrows were like a string of pearls as they were shot out continuously. The remaining black-clothed men fell to the ground one after another. Pooh! Xiao Hao killed the last person with a palm strike. All the invaders were exterminated and killed. Grandpa Hai's divine archery is unparalleled. Xiao Hao glanced at Old Man Hai and became curious about this old man who transported fruits and vegetables. How can this old man be considered a divine archer? The martial imperial manners Grandpa 15 is the divine archer. Old Man Hai naturally knew what Xiao Hao was thinking about. Old Man Hai put away his longbow and shook his head with a smile. Back then, I also fought in the great wilderness. Now that I am old, I am living in seclusion near the Stone Tribe's ancestral land. I don't have any other origins and have nothing to do with the Stone Tribe. Old man, thank you for your help. Since Old Man Hai had already said that he didn't have any other origins and had nothing to do with the Stone Tribe, Xiao Hao didn't take it to heart. After all, in the entire village, this old man was the only one who treated him sincerely. This old man didn't help much. Young master, you are the true hero. You are only 3 years old, but you are already so outstanding. Young master's name will definitely shake the great wilderness in the future. Old Man Hai looked at Xiao Hao and was full of praise. He was already so outstanding at the age of 3. He killed 3 ferocious beasts and dozens of bandits. He was bathed in blood and walked over corpses without a change in expression. What kind of hero was this? Chapter 558. More than 20 blood movement cultivators and 3 ferocious beasts. I should be able to refine a saint bloodline. Xiao Hao returned to his room in the manor. His soul sank into his sea of knowledge and entered the ancestral hall of the Supreme Palace. At this moment, more than 20 corpses were floating in a brilliant light inside the ancestral hall. Refine the corpses. Xiao Hao already knew the function of the ancestral hall and immediately began the refinement process. Boom! Rays of light filled the sky and shrouded all the corpses. Under this light, the 20 corpses instantly melted and turned into a pure radiance full of vitality. Refining a saint bloodline is actually using pure vitality as the material to refine it? He didn't kill 3 pure-blooded creatures of the blood movement realm, but these 20 corpses contained enough vitality to refine a saint bloodline. Saint bloodline, refine. With the pure vitality as the material, Xiao Hao immediately activated the function of the ancestral hall to refine a saint bloodline. A five-colored light suddenly rushed up. The pure vitality refined from the corpses was like boiling water as it began to churn. Amidst the boiling radiance of life, there was a brilliant golden light that was like a star in the dark night sky, bursting with resplendent radiance. Buzz, the five-colored light fiercely shook as the vitality condensed and gathered into the golden light. Boom! With a loud sound, the bright golden light swept out like a vast ocean. A ball of golden blood floated in the air and revealed a majestic and exuberant vitality. Like a scorching sun hanging high in the sky, this ball of golden blood revealed a huge power that seemed to cause the entire space to burn with golden flames. Unprecedented since ancient times, an unparalleled saint bloodline. Its divine power was vast and unparalleled in the world. Such a powerful force. Seeing the golden blood floating in the air, and feeling its vast and majestic aura, Xiao Hao was so excited that his body trembled. After fusing with this bloodline, I will have an unprecedented saint bloodline and will be able to forge an invincible supreme foundation. Xiao Hao tightly clenched his fists and walked under the golden blood. He faced the center of the ancestral hall and deeply bowed towards Li Yu's portrait. Ancestral Master, please bestow upon me the saintly bloodline. Xiao Hao bowed to Li Yu's portrait. As you wish. A mighty voice rang out in the ancestral hall. The golden blood floating in the air whistled and rushed into Xiao Hao's body. Boom! When the golden blood entered his body, it was as if a ball of lava was poured into his body. Xiao Hao's entire body was covered in raging flames. Golden flames surged, and Xiao Hao felt as if every part of his body was burning in flames. He had turned into a human-shaped torch. The intense pain made Xiao Hao unable to help but roar. This was torture. It was as if every part of his body, every bit of his flesh and blood, had turned into fuel, burning with the flame of life. Golden blood seeped out from the flames and seeped into every inch of his flesh. Xiao Hao's original life force was used as fuel to refine the golden body in the raging fire. Boom! Monstrous flames shot up like a volcanic eruption, engulfing the heavens and earth. This was the final eruption, and also the final tempering. When the flames dissipated and the phenomenon faded, Xiao Hao's body reappeared. The divine light was vast and dazzling. His skin was as clear as jade, as if it was carved out of the most beautiful jade. His muscles and bones were extremely strong, as if they were made of divine iron. The brilliant golden blood was like molten gold, surging violently and mightily. Xiao Hao's body bloomed with endless light. The golden divine light was as vast as the ocean, and his blood surged like a raging tide. As expected of the unparalleled sacred body, it's so powerful. Xiao Hao's body was still the same as before. It was still the body of a 3-year-old child, but the power contained in this body was like a dragon or a tiger. If he were to encounter the enemies from before again, Xiao Hao was confident that he could beat them all with just his physical strength and without using any paragon skills. The successor of the Supreme Hall has achieved the sacred body of the ancient. A body-refining method is hereby awarded as an encouragement. At this time, a mighty voice rang out in the ancestral hall again. A ray of light rushed out from the portrait of Li Yu that was hanging in the middle of the ancestral hall and fell into Xiao Hao's soul. The martial path of human immortals? Rebirth from a drop of blood, ever-changing, the law of heaven and earth, and even the body of a saint? Xiao Hao was surprised when he saw the new body-refining method in his mind. What a powerful method! This body-refining method did not cultivate any paragon skills or runes. It only trained the body's qi and blood. It was unbelievable that it could reach such a level of perfection. No wonder the Supreme Ancestral Master said that every successor of the Supreme Hall must be the Supreme of the world. If I can't become a Supreme with such a powerful inheritance, then I'm too useless. Xiaohao bowed to the portrait of the ancestral master in the ancestral hall. Ancestral master, I, Xiaohao, will work hard to cultivate and become the supreme of the world. I will not let you down. When Xiaohao achieved the sacred body and received the inheritance, he was overjoyed, but someone was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Boom! With a heavy slap, the table was smashed into pieces and the floor collapsed. Trash! In Chongyan City, Yu Meng smashed the table in front of him with a slap. He glared fiercely at the manager who was kneeling on the ground in front of him. An ice-cold chill pervaded the air, causing the entire hall to be as cold as the coldest winter. I know my mistake. The manager kowtowed heavily. This time, I will do it personally. If I don't kill that little bastard, I won't come back. Humph! Yu Meng snorted and waved his sleeves. A huge force rushed out and blasted the manager out of the hall. I hope you won't disappoint me, Yu Meng said indifferently. He waved his sleeves and walked out of the hall. Damn little bastard! The manager stood up with a sinister expression. He gritted his teeth and looked in the direction of the second ancestral land of the Stone Clan. His eyes were cold. More than 20 experts were all killed. Someone must have interfered. The manager walked out of the Rain Clan's mansion and rushed toward the second ancestral land of the Stone Clan. This ancestral land of the Stone Clan has become the place of exile of the Royal Clan. It is impossible for the Stone Clan to station experts in this place. Then, who is the one who interfered? The manager's figure was as fast as lightning. Soon, he arrived at the periphery of the second ancestral land of the Stone Clan. Hiding in the forest outside the manor, the manager hid his tracks and spied on everyone in the manor. There are no eye-catching people in the manor. Who is the one who interfered? The manager did not see any experts in the manor. He was a little surprised and doubtful. It's you. When Old Man Hai drove the beast carriage into the manor, the manager's eyes narrowed. He was furious. An old ghost of the Grotto Heaven realm who won't live for more than a few days. How dare you meddle in other people's business? You are courting death. The steward clenched his fists tightly. Old bastard, little bastard, you're all going to die. Chapter 559. Night fell. Outside the village of the Shur clan's second ancestral land, there was a small village. This village was developed to support the Shur clan's second ancestral land and provide all kinds of living materials. The village was not far from the village. It was only 2 to 3 miles away. It could be said that it was connected to the Shur clan's ancestral land. Old Man Hai was a hunter. Every day, he would drive a beast cart to deliver his prey and the fruits and vegetables from the village to the village to the village. It was already late. Old Man Hai had a pipe in his mouth and was lying on a chair. He was smoking and puffing out clouds of smoke. Young master has changed so much? In the past, he was just a child who was bullied. In the blink of an eye, he seemed to have been reborn. What kind of inheritance did the Shur clan leave behind in their ancestral land? Old Man Hai pondered for a moment and then laughed. I'm already old. Why do I still care about this? I'll just live my life peacefully. The night wind was cold. The whimpering of the wind faintly revealed a hint of killing intent. Old Man Hai's turbid eyes suddenly lit up. He stood up abruptly. His old and slightly hunched body suddenly straightened up. His chi and blood surged like a tide. His spiritual essence shot up to the sky like a smoke signal. I just want to live my life peacefully. It seems like someone doesn't want me to live peacefully. Old Man Hai turned his head and looked outside the village. In the dark night, the killing intent of the night wind swept up countless withered leaves. If you want to live peacefully, you shouldn't be meddlesome. People who meddle don't live long. In the darkness of the night, a figure rode on the wind and silently floated into the village. It was as if it was drizzling, entering with the wind. Rain Clan. Seeing the figure that floated in like a drizzle, Old Man High's face turned serious. Your Rain Clan dares to invade the Sher Clan's ancestral land? Rain Clan, do you want to be exterminated? As long as I kill you, who will know that I was here? Without any evidence, even the Stone Emperor would not easily put the blame on our Rain Clan. The manager in green looked at Old Man High with a cold smile. He stretched out his hand and a thin and sharp spike appeared in his hand. Old man, you shouldn't meddle in other people's business. Those who meddle in other people's business don't live long. The steward's figure flickered and silently floated up. He looked light and powerless, but the sharp spike pierced through the air like a bolt of lightning. It was earth-shattering. Dripping water pierces stone. Watery light gathered on the tip of the spike. It had an extremely strong penetrating power. It pierced through the void and pierced towards Old Man High. Rain Clan's true technique. Old Man High's expression changed drastically. The smoking pipe in his hand emitted a dazzling rune light. He unleashed all of his strength and blocked the spikes with all his might. Even with all his might, Old Man High's expression was still very serious. Old Man High was a Grotto Heaven Realm cultivator. However, he was just an unorthodox cultivator and did not have a profound inheritance. The azure-clothed man in front of him was also at the Grotto Heaven Realm. However, he was from the Rain Clan and had the orthodox inheritance of the Rain Clan. His strength was much stronger than those unorthodox loose cultivators. Boom! The pipe and the spike collided with each other, creating a loud noise. A huge force surged up and the cigarette in Old Man High's hand exploded. He staggered backward and spat out a mouthful of blood. Humph! A mere loose cultivator dares to meddle in the affairs of a noble. You really don't know what's good for you. After sending Old Man High flying with a single blow, the green-robed manager snorted coldly. He glanced at Old Man High with disdain. The sharp spike in his hand vibrated as he leaped up and charged towards Old Man High again. I'm not that easy to bully, Old Man High roared. His hair stood on end and he roared like a furious lion. He dashed forward and fought with the azure-clothed manager. The commotion caused by the fight alerted many people in the village. However, these ordinary people did not dare to meddle in a fight between cultivators. They all closed their doors and did not dare to make a sound. Over there. The commotion caused by the fight also alerted Xiaohao. Xiaohao dashed out of the door and looked in the direction of the fight. He was shocked. That's the direction of Grandpa High's house. Did something happen to Grandpa High? Xiaohao's figure sprang up and rushed towards Old Man High's house. A huge amount of qi and blood surged like a great river. His small figure was like a giant dragon or elephant galloping across the vast wilderness. His heavy footsteps seemed to cause the earth to shake. Grandpa High, don't panic. I'm coming. Amidst the rumbling sounds of footsteps, Xiaohao's figure was like a huge mountain as he fiercely crashed over. The azure-clothed manager forced Old Man High to retreat. His sharp spike pierced through Old Man High's shoulder, leaving a bloody hole. Just as he was about to continue, he suddenly saw Xiaohao's ferocious figure dashing towards him like a mountain. The azure-clothed manager was shocked. Who is this? Young master, leave quickly. Old Man High was covered in blood. When he saw Xiaohao dashing towards him, he panicked and shouted anxiously, Young master, this is someone from the Rain Clan. Leave quickly. Leave quickly. Someone from the Rain Clan? So he's here for me. When Xiaohao heard Old Man High's words, he immediately understood the situation. This azure-clothed man must have come here because he killed the group of bandits who attacked the village. He thought that it was Grandpa High who killed those people. So he's here for revenge. Xiaohao snorted coldly. His ferocious figure did not stop. Instead, he sped up. So you're that little brat? The azure-clothed manager also understood Xiaohao's identity. When he saw Xiaohao's boundless qi and blood and his tyrannical physique, the azure-clothed manager's pupils shrank. A 3-year-old brat has such a tyrannical physique? Could it be that he's not a substitute? The azure-clothed manager raised the spike in his hand and sneered. It doesn't matter if he's a substitute. Since he's here, I'll deal with him together. In a flash, the azure-clothed manager dashed in front of Xiaohao. The spike in his hand pierced through the air and stabbed towards Xiaohao's head. This spike could pierce through metal and stone. If Xiaohao was stabbed, his head would definitely be pierced and he would die a miserable death. Bandit! Xiaohao leaped up and dodged the azure-clothed manager's spike. You deserve to die! Xiaohao roared angrily. He raised his dazzling golden fist, and a mighty divine light swept across the area. Dazzling divine light burst out from Xiaohao's body. The vast golden light behind Xiaohao formed a vast ocean, surging violently. Boom! The heavy fist smashed out violently, causing the air to explode. Bam! The azure-clothed manager did not expect Xiaohao to be so powerful. He was caught off guard and was instantly hit by the punch. The azure-clothed manager spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying by Xiaohao's punch. Young master is so strong? When Old Man Hai saw this, he was dumbfounded. Just the strength of his body was already so tyrannical. This was unbelievable. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.